Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You can see me behind all our wonderful, fine students up there. At this time, I'll call into session the meeting of the AISD Board of Trustees on December 12th. We wish it was June 12th. June 12th. You're done. Congratulations, seniors. You've graduated. On December 12th at 7:07 p.m. I want to thank everyone for coming out to be with us this evening. We will start our meeting tonight with an opening ceremony. Please join Dr. Cavazos in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. At this time, would you please silence all cell phones and electronic devices to avoid disruptions to those around you. And now, if you would, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And if you can't tell, the first item on our agenda tonight, we're just going to make y'all stand up here the whole meeting. Is that fine? We're gonna move y'all to the end and just let you say. The first item on our meeting tonight is our student performance tonight by the Lamar High School a cappella choir. As these students are walking out, please help me in thanking Miss Tony Worley, the director, for all the hard work. Thank you, Tony. That's the most movement we've had in a dance. Some of the honors of this outstanding choir, if you can't tell, is they're the guest choir in October for the Arlington Master Chorale, consistent superior ratings at UIL concert and sight reading contest, and they are performing at the Parade of the Wooden Soldiers. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Thanks, Lamar, for all your hard work. Next, we have next item on our agenda is our great honor that we get to distinguish tonight is honoring our Student of the Month. This is something new we've started each year. Started this year, and each month we get to recognize one student in the whole AISD. So it's a very nice, distinct honor, and this month our Student of the Month is Rachel Cindric from Martin High School. Come up here. Now, Rachel, go ahead and stand at the podium. This is where we get to embarrass you and read what a great student you are.
Good.
Here's the letter of recognition for Rachel and why she has won this distinct honor. Martin High School selects Rachel Cindric from Martin High School for the AISD Student of the Month for special recognition. Rachel's involved in multiple activities at Martin, including the theater, show choir, chamber choir, and also serves as historian on the MHS Student Council. Rachel is an extremely talented young woman who played the lead in our one-act play, Children of a Lesser God, which went to the state competition this past spring. She also played the lead this fall in the production of Distracted, giving another exceptional performance as the mother of a child with attention deficit disorder. Rachel also performs and sings in Martin's show choir and our chamber choir, the top performance choir at Martin. What most stands out about Rachel, besides her exceptional talents, is her desire to be involved and as a positive role model in leadership at our campus. Rachel was involved in our homecoming, a nominee for Homecoming Queen, and played a leading role in our charitable fundraising drive to sponsor the prom for West High School in West Texas that is still recovering from the horrific explosion which destroyed their school. Rachel was part of the student council team who went to West to deliver the over $6,000 contribution directly to the West Student Council. Rachel claims that Martin High School taught her what she loves and developed her passions. Just one more example of this besides what is already mentioned is that Rachel came to Martin without speaking one word of Spanish. On a mission trip to Costa Rica this past summer, Rachel says her Spanish-speaking abilities were at the point that she was able to fully communicate in Spanish with those who are only fluent in their native language of Spanish. Rachel Cindric exemplifies all that the district is striving to accomplish in the strategic plan for our students. She's actively involved in multiple organizations at Martin. She will graduate as a lifelong learner with a commitment to her community, and she will continue to excel at the post-secondary level. Martin High School and the AISD, Rachel, and the Board of Trustees, we're very honored to honor Rachel Cedric as our Student of the Month.
Thank you.
Now, as a Student of the Month, Rachel, this is the time we give you to introduce anyone that you like to introduce and give us any words of wisdom that we could use at any time.
Oh gosh, okay. This is my family. They're great. That's my mom, dad, and my brother. My sister couldn't be here, but I don't even know what to say. I'm so honored to be chosen for this. When Miss Roddy told me it was going to be me, I was like, oh my gosh, out of all the people you could have chosen, I was just extremely honored and humbled to be here. I don't know. I guess just one of the things I could say is like encourage all of the students to get so plugged into school, because I know that's where I really, in high school, because I was so plugged in, I really did realize what my passions are, and it prepared me to continue with those passions for the rest of my life. So that'd be the one thing.
Now, Rachel, you're a senior, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what are you, it's typical senior question you always get, what are your future plans, Rachel?
That's a really good question. I don't know. Well, I know that, okay, I kind of have three things that I really have been writing in all my college essays that because I don't know the exact thing, but I do know that they'll revolve around performing, because I love performing. I've always done it. Spanish, like you talked about, I have a love and passion for the Spanish language, and it's awesome. And then also leadership and service. So
wonderful.
Something with all those.
Rachel, I have a feeling no matter what you're going to do, you're going to be successful.
Well, thank you very much.
We're very proud of you. If you would please stay down there, Dr. Vassos, and I would like to come down and give you a quick token of our appreciation.
Sure.
Congratulations, Rachel. And the Board of Trustees all wears our pins. These are pins that don't get given out by the board. I encourage you to put it on your student ID, badge, book bag, whatever you'd like to do with it. So congratulations, Rachel.
Thank you very much.
Let's get a picture over here.
Oh, yeah.
Next, we will consider administrative appointments. Dr. Vassos.
Thank you, President Hogg. I'd like to recommend that the board appoint the individuals discussed in closed session for Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources and the Executive Director of Transformational Learning.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Reich and a second by Mr. Hibbs. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. 7 trustees present, 7 trustees voting in the affirmative. Dr. Vassos, please introduce our new appointees.
Thank you, President Hogg. It's my pleasure to present to you the new Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mr. Scott Kale. Scott attended St. Mary's College of California and received his Bachelor of Science in Industrial and Organizational Psychology. He attended San Francisco State University and received the Master of Science in Industrial and Organizational Psychology. Scott comes to us with extensive experience in the private sector. He most recently was a human resource manager in Ecolab Corporation, has worked for Parker Hanfin Corporation, Genesis, and has had a long tenure with National Semiconductor, where he served as their human resources director. Scott, welcome, and anything you'd like to say, anyone you'd like to introduce?
Absolutely. First of all, President Hogg, board members, and Dr. Cavazos, thank you so much for the opportunity. I literally am thrilled. You know, I'm looking forward to this opportunity. I've had lots of peripheral experience with the district in my time at National Semiconductor over 16 years. You have an outstanding school district, and I'm just pleased to be a part of it at this point. So thank you for the opportunity. I would like to introduce family members, Becky West and my son, Justin Kale. And other than that, I'm just happy to be here. So
Awesome. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce our new Executive Director for Transformational Learning, Mr. Ricardo Garcia.
President Hogg,
Oh, excuse me. I'll read your bio here a little
I
bit.
just got excited with the little
I know.
green lights.
Rick attended East Texas State University and received his Bachelor of Education. He attended Wichita State University and received his Master of Music, and then Texas A&M University, where he received his Master's in as well. And so most recently, Rick was the Associate Vice Chancellor at Tarrant County College District in Fort Worth. He has worked as an Executive Dean in Eastville College in Mesquite, Associate Dean in Richland College of Dallas. He's been an assistant principal in Dallas ISD, has worked as a middle school, a high school, and an elementary school counselor. Has also been a band director in Garland ISD and has served in the Dallas ISD and started in La Jolla ISD
Yes.
as a band director as well. Rick, congratulations. Anything you'd like to say, anyone you'd like to introduce?
First of all, President Hogg, Superintendent Cavazos, board members and colleagues, thank you for this great opportunity. I begin with a sincere thank you, and again, thank you for the opportunity that's been bestowed on me. I come to you with a solid experience in education. You heard some of my credentials and where I've taught in the past. Most recently, I worked alongside college presidents, vice presidents, deans, faculty, and it is a pleasure to be coming to Arlington ISD to be able to do a similar thing, and that is working with change, working with state initiatives, working with district initiatives. I love the direction that Arlington ISD has taken. I know I'm leaving a great family behind with Tarrant County College. However, I'm confident that my new position at AISD will only help strengthen the already great partnership that exists between TCC and AISD. Needless to say, I'm ecstatic about being a part of another exemplary institution whose principles of inspired learners, effective leadership, and engaged community are sure to transform us into a premier institution. I am ready and excited about working alongside Ms. Evans Smith, her fantastic team, our campus and district leadership, and most especially faculty and staff in an effort to continue raising the bar on student success. In closing, I'd like to say a big thank you to my biggest supporter, and that's my wife of 26 years, Beth. She's back here. And I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to also thank Dr. Cavazos for being such a visionary and thinking about bringing a person from a college environment to a public school setting and giving me this opportunity. I think that's very, very visionary to be able to take some of the things that are happening in the college arena to the secondary and elementary system. So it's a pleasure to work for you as the Executive Director for Transformational Learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Before we send you off in the room,
Two more.
Two more.
Just introductions.
see, Rick, I jumped the gun also. It happens all the time. Go ahead.
The next two individuals are introductions. They've been already appointed to their positions. Their positions don't come to the board, but we wanted to introduce them because they're in important leadership positions. First, I'd like to introduce Paula Long, and she's our new Director of Special Education. Paula? Paula attended the University of South Alabama and obtained her Bachelor of Science in Special Education, and then her Master of Education in Special Education as well. Most recently, Paula has been the Director of Special Education in Mission ISD, has also been the Director of Special Education in Harlingen, has been a Coordinator of Special Education in McAllen, and has worked in the Far San Juan Alamo School District as a diagnostician, has worked as a special ed teacher in McAllen as well, and has experience in the United States Marine Corps as a military air traffic controller as well. So Paula, congratulations. Anything you'd like to say, anyone you'd like to introduce?
I would just like to thank Board President, board members, and Dr. Cavazos for this amazing opportunity. It's great to be in Arlington. Just when I started looking at the position, it was phenomenal, the website, and just reading about all the wonderful things that are happening here in Arlington. So I'm very thankful for you all for giving me this opportunity to serve the students in the district who have disabilities and their families, and to work with such an awesome leadership team to help address learning in the district and move the district forward. So thank you.
And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Duplessis, our new Director of Maintenance and Operations. Jennifer attended the University of North Texas and obtained her Bachelor of Business Administration. Also attended the University of North Texas for her Master's in Business Administration and Strategic Management. Most recently has been our Energy Manager in AISD and very successful in her energy management strategies for our school district. Has previously worked in Chevron Corporation and the Schneider Electric Corporation as well in various capacities. So Jennifer, congratulations. Anything you'd like to say, anyone you'd like to introduce?
Thank you. I did write a couple things down. I promise it's not that long. First of all, administration, Dr. Cavazos, the Board of Trustees, Cindy Powell, Bob Carlisle. I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to work for Arlington ISD for the past 3 years. It has been a huge blessing. It really was a dream come true to come to this district as an energy manager, and I'm even more excited about this next role. I did want to say to all the wonderful people I've had the opportunity to work with in energy management, especially Danny Helm, our energy specialist, who's always working constantly to try to make our buildings more energy efficient and more comfortable. And also Tricia Offord, who's kind of our Wonder Woman in the office, who takes care of everything. I also wanted to thank everybody who's been on our energy committee. We've had a ton of volunteers in every campus and every capacity who've helped with all the initiatives that we've attempted to do in energy efficiency to save district dollars to improve the environment. So it's been very exciting to do that. I also wanted to thank especially our electricians, HVAC workers, grounds workers, custodians, all those folks that spent hours. Some of them basically never left all weekend during the ice storm, and people weren't necessarily always aware of that. But they worked extraordinarily hard to make the facilities as ready as possible once the kids came back to school. So I want to thank them all for that. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank my husband, Eric, who's here, who's always supported everything I've ever wanted to do. So thank you for that. He's also a wonderful father to our 3 children. And thank you, Betty Pinker, for controlling the redheaded 2-year-old over there. Thank you. I'm very excited to be in Arlington, and to those of you that are new to Arlington, I want to tell you it's been a wonderful place for me to be for 3 years. I had the opportunity to meet one of y'all already at a restaurant locally. This has been a great place to be. I'm very excited about where the district is going. I'm very excited about being able to help just maintain and operate world-class facilities for our students so they can excel. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. And before we send you off, I would like to give a special thank you to Mr. Hill. Mr. Hill is our Assistant Superintendent of Administration, and for the last months, he's been doing double duty as in charge of our HR, and he has done an outstanding job. So. His wife's happy, may actually be able to come home some, so, or she may not be happy, we never know, Mr. Hill. So, as is our custom, we do ask that you would please follow Mr. Hill out in the lobby for a receiving line so we can all meet you and greet you. If you would, please let the board go first, we appreciate that. We will take a brief break. We will come back right at approximately about 7:40. Call this meeting back to order at 7:42 p.m. Now we come to our open forum for agenda items. This is a routine part of the school board's agenda for regularly scheduled meetings. This segment of the meeting provides citizens with an opportunity to share their views with the trustees on items that are on the agenda tonight. It is not intended to be a discussion or a debate, and trustees will not reply to the speakers. Derogatory comments aimed at individuals will not be tolerated, and personnel matters are not appropriate subjects for open forum. I have 3 cards from our audience. When your name is called, please step to the podium. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. A lighted timer on the podium will assist you in pacing your presentation. A yellow light will illuminate when there's 1 minute left for you to complete your presentation. When the red light comes on and the buzzer sounds, please end your presentation. Our order of speakers tonight will be Richard Gonzalez, Luis Castillo, and Bridget Davis. First up is Mr. Richard Gonzalez for the speaking of calendar committee recommendation. Good evening, Mr. Gonzalez.
Good evening, President Hogg, school board members, and Superintendent Cavazos. First of all, happy holidays. I think we have a common goal. That is that we want to create an enriching academic environment so that 100% of our AISD students reach their maximum academic performance. I have seen, and I was very grateful to hear Dr. Cavazos speak several times in the community about being inclusive, bringing the community into the school system process. I admire that. I applaud that effort. Because to achieve a trusting, respectful partnership with all who have an investment in the student academic achievement is vital. Because frankly, a culture of inclusion should be developed to promote a diversity of ideas and creative solutions. Teachers, administrators cannot achieve this goal alone. For that reason, we need community members involved in the decision-making processes. We extend our hand to form this partnership with you to provide you ideas on how to achieve these goals. Therefore, I'm sorry, but I was deeply disappointed to see that the calendar committee excluded community input. I don't know if that was by design or just overlooked the importance of having community members on that. But here I find the Board of Trustees communication, and it clearly states by omission that community members weren't permitted to serve. That's troubling when I hear Dr. Cavazos and your board members saying we want community involvement. I don't understand the logic of this. We respect the calendar discernment process so much that I wanted to be on it as well as other community members. Beginning in August, I submitted my request to Dr. Hill's office. If I had been allowed to serve on this committee, I would have advocated the inclusion of a Cesar Chavez holiday. Because I was excluded, I must wonder, is this a true reason I was not allowed to serve? Now, if I had been on the committee, I would have offered a reasonable win-win solution. In consideration that Latinos comprise 47% of the student bodies and will soon exceed over 50%, it's bewildering to me why Latino students, parents, and community members do not have a holiday honoring an outstanding leader of our community. Now, I've heard the argument that we're waiting for the federal government to tell us Cesar Chavez is worthy of such an honor. I find fault with that logic. That means we have to wait for the feds to tell us who's worthy of that distinction. Are we not smart enough here in Arlington, Texas, to make that determination? Do we really need a bureaucrat in Congress, aides, to tell them, to whisper in their ear, now's the time to do Cesar Chavez, and then say, okay, Mother, may I? Now we can honor the man. I offer a reasonable solution to this issue. In March, and on the calendar committee's recommendation, there are 5 spring holidays. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you not to spend another dollar. I ask you not to create another day, but I ask you to take of those 5 days, 1 day, for the man who deserves respect, Cesar Chavez. Therefore, you would have 4 spring holidays and 1 day. It would fall in the month of his birthday, which is March 31st. I think that's a reasonable solution. It's a win-win for you, us, and the community. In conclusion, I ask that you allow the community in the future to serve on committees. I think we would be able to provide you reasonable ideas, and we would be your partners, which I think is what you're striving to have in this new era. We also ask that you respect us as we respect you. I ask that you accept this win-win solution and name one of the spring break holidays for Cesar Chavez. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Up next is Mr. Luis Castillo speaking on the school calendar.
Good evening, Board President Hogg, distinguished board members, and Dr. Cavazos. My name is Luis Castillo. I'm the president of the Arlington LULAC Council 4353, and I'd like to voice my disappointment on the lack of a Cesar Chavez school holiday in the calendar. The committee composition of the calendar committee composition was heavily stacked in favor of employees, and as we know, employees ain't gonna go what the board's past position on Cesar Chavez school holiday is gonna be. A few years ago, when Ms. Gloria Pena served as board president, the calendar committee proposed a Cesar Chavez school holiday. And Ms. Pena went all out on that proposal, on that recommendation, and the board, this board, sent back the recommendation to the committee. And when it came back for the second time to the school board, it didn't appear there. So obviously, it's very clear the position that the board has taken. Now, what is it about Cesar Chavez? It's no longer, you know, an issue of accommodating a date. Mr. Gonzalez just proposed a day on spring break. No harm proposal. And yet, if this board refuses to consider that proposal, then what is it about Cesar Chavez? You know, there's 47% of this student population here are Hispanics. You know, the board obviously is predominantly white. Is that the issue here? I'm beginning to think that there's something about this here now. When Ms. Pena was served as board president, traditionally the board president serves 2 years. Ms. Pena only got to serve 1. The associate superintendent who headed the calendar committee later on disappeared. He's no longer with us. So the message is clear what the board's position is on Cesar Chavez. So there's a loss of confidence that the calendar committee is going to come up with some proposal that includes Cesar Chavez, knowing full well the past history of this school board. They're not going to make a recommendation. They're not going to go against the bosses. So let's not fool ourselves about community engagement. I mean, Dr. Cavazos has spoken a lot of times about his administration support and embraces community engagement. It all sounds good on paper, in theory, but in practice, it's a farce. That's what it is. The Cinco de Mayo holiday used to be a school holiday here that was celebrated in the calendar, in the school district, and it was included in the school calendar. And for many years, it was a school holiday recognized by the school district. Now, there are some board members who have taken the position that I will not support a Cesar Chavez school holiday because it's not a federally recognized holiday. Well, that's a lame excuse. Because Cinco de Mayo is not a federal recognized school holiday, and yet this board and prior boards has had Cinco de Mayo celebrations on the calendar. So it looks like the board is always very clearly looking for ways or excuses to omit Cesar Chavez and school calendar. Mr. Gonzalez's proposal, and I support that, of naming a day, designating a day in spring break. Cesar Chavez's birthday is in March, so it will be very appropriate. And it's no harm. Just spring break, it could be a Friday, it could be a Monday. We'll just name it Cesar Chavez the day. And I think it'll be a win-win for all parties. And we can put this issue to rest. If not, we'll be here again next year and the following year. Now, I did submit a petition to you, Board President. I don't know whether you're in receipt of it.
I do.
And it was signed by about approximately 400 individuals in support of a Cesar Chavez school holiday. And unlike other petitions, this petition will be an ongoing petition, meaning that for next year we'll gather more and we'll add on to those approximately 400 or so signatures. And we'll keep adding to it until it reaches whatever number it takes to convince this board that Cesar Chavez deserves some recognition and respect. Is my time up?
You have 1 minute.
Okay. So I seriously want this board to reconsider their prior positions on Cesar Chavez. The proposal on the table, it's reasonable, it's no harm, nobody's going to get hurt, and it accommodates everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Up next to speak is Bridget Davis over the school calendar. I don't see Miss Davis. Is Miss Davis anywhere? Okay. I don't see Miss Davis, so with that, we will move on. That's the end of our open forum for agenda items. Next on our agenda is action items. We will move on to action item A, which is consider 2014-15 school calendar. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Hogg. And at the last board work session, our Assistant Superintendent Michael Hill presented the board calendar, and it continues as a recommendation.
Ms. Pena.
Before we have a motion and a second, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that a request has been made, and I support that request to consider naming one of the days in the spring break. I think that that's a lot of latitude, and I think it's reasonable, and it is a no harm, no foul. So I'd like us to consider making that move. And whatever day anyone wants to pick is fine.
Is that in the form of a motion, Ms. Pena?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we accept the calendar as presented with a change to name one of the days of the spring break, a Cesar Chavez holiday.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Seeing no second, Ms. Pena, your motion fails. Is there other discussion or motions from the board?
I recommend that we accept the 2014-2015 school calendar as presented by the administration.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Hibbs and a second by Ms. Solons. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Seven trustees present, 6 trustees voting in the affirmative, Ms. Pena voting against. We have a calendar. Up next is action item B, consider instructional model adoption. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Hogg. And this evening, we'd like to bring forward the instructional model. And as you are well aware, our strategic plan, one of the big pieces of the strategic plan was to formally adopt an instructional model, a framework, if you will, from K-12 for our classrooms. And so the expectations that you can see in every classroom. So Renee Pope, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, has been leading a committee for a long period of time, it seems, doesn't it, Renee? Not too long. She thinks everything's accelerated. So the committee has done a very good job of vetting out instructional models, considering our needs, and considering our strategic plan. And so Renee is here to give us her recommendation and our recommendation for the instructional model. Renee.
To President Hogg and Dr. Cavazos and members of the board, I am delighted to come before you and talk to you a little bit about the instructional model that the committee is proposing. First, I'd like to set forth what our goal was and kind of do a review of the strategic plan as well as the board policy. First of all, just like Dr. Cavazos said, the instructional model the work has been born from Goal 1 and Strategy 1.2. We were charged to implement an instructional model that promotes engagement, creativity, critical thinking, and student achievement. Also, I'd like to review Board Policy AE Local. The purpose of this policy is it sets forth the board's mission statement, core beliefs, and theory of action, which together directed a district-wide system of continuous improvement in effective leadership and instruction. It's important to note that under the curriculum management section, that, of course, you know, we have MPE schools, but it says the managed performance aspect of MPE requires a controlled delivery system of the district's curriculum. And one of the essential features of that system, of course, is a high-quality instructional practices, which is reflected in the comprehensive instructional model that we bring forth tonight. It's also important to highlight, under the pedagogy, it's so important to highlight that the board is acknowledging that effective teaching is both an art and a science, and that the board desires creativity and flexibility in teachers as professionals who have the greatest impact in helping students achieve. The board therefore provides the district's teachers optimal freedom to teach the district's curriculum using their preferred teaching styles in accordance with the framework of the instructional model that we are bringing forth tonight. The process was a wonderful one. We started in March, and we met our deadline because we were supposed to come in at this time, and we made it. I have a tremendous committee, 41 people, very, very dedicated, came to all the meetings, did endless hours of work at home, participated on base camp when we couldn't see each other, gave up days of vacation and days without their students to come and preview the models we were considering. So this time I'd like all of the committee members that are here, and there are some that could not come tonight, and they are here with us in spirit. But if you were a instructional model committee member, please stand. We are an awesome group of teachers and administrators, C&I staff, central office, parents and community members, and our teacher organization representatives. And of course, you know, we had some powerful people from the Instructional Technology Department. So we were a true stakeholder representative group. I also like to highlight a part of the instructional model process was, of course, to kind of start the conversation about the late school start. And Debbie Moore graciously agreed to be on our committee and serve as one of our parents, and she was very, very dedicated to the process. And so now that we're before the board for adoption of the model, our next stage is to finish setting that committee, and then we'll start the work of examining the late school starts. And so I want to acknowledge that for her patience with working through this process. The instructional model process was really in 3 stages. The first stage was our learning stage, and we really had to come to a lot of a little angst to try to make something so abstract concrete. And so we really, I gave them a lot of writing assignments and did a lot of reading, and we had a lot of dialogue, lots of rich conversations about not only what is a model, but what is our task. We had a lot of rich conversations about creating a model, adopting a model, and the group was very adamant that we really wanted to bring forth to our school district something that had a very strong research base. And so that's what we did. We went into an analysis stage where we formed 9 subcommittees, all based around the strategic plan. And each of those committees had a task of coming up with a rubric, using the research to flesh out their rubrics, and then evaluating each model that we brought forth in their little tiny slice. So we had creativity and 21st century skills and integration of technology and engagement. And so that analysis stage was probably the longest stage. They had huge volumes of work that they had to read at home in their easy chairs to get ready for the conversations that we needed to have at the last stage, where we actually blended our committees and made some powerful decisions. The committee was unanimous on the selection of the model. It was 100% were behind the one that we're bringing forth. And so what is that one? It is the 7 strategies of assessment for learning. That is the strategy, that is the model that our committee is proposing for your consideration tonight. This model is powerful. It is one that will actually help us accomplish the goals and the vision of the strategic plan. It is bold, and it is transformative, and it is very, very student-centered. And so just to go into a little bit more about it, It's based on the work of Dr. Rick Stiggins, and he is, in his own right, an assessment guru. Jan Chipui is a researcher, and she's also author of the book that outlines the model. The Pearson Assessment Institute out of Portland is Rick Stiggins' institute, and they are the ones who will be supporting us through this work. And so I put on here just a little caption because Dr. Stiggins has been so adamant about finding a way to give our teachers the tools they need to collect the information they need so that our students can be as successful as possible. And so it's very, very significant that we're collaborating with him on this work. A little bit about what is assessment for learning as opposed to assessment of learning. Assessment for learning is really formative assessment, and formative assessment is really a powerful driver for student achievement. It's not an event, it's not an instrument, it's a collection of practices that teachers use on a daily basis that leads to improvement in learning. It's very flexible, it's about rich feedback, not only for teachers but for students, and the research tells us that students thrive on that feedback to achieve and exceed their goals. In our language, we talk a lot about formative versus summative assessment. Formative assessment is at the heart of the model. That's the assessment for learning. And these are some of the characteristics of formative assessment. It's continuous. It occurs during instruction. It's not graded. It is a process. It's rich with descriptive feedback. And it's used to inform instruction for teachers and for students on a daily basis, as opposed to the summative assessment, which are like our district curriculum assessments. They're periodic. They occur at the end, like a unit test. They're usually graded. They're product-oriented, they're evaluative, and they're used to certify learning. So once you get to the point where you feel like your kids have had enough practice and you're ready to certify, then that's the role of the summative. But once again, the model that we're proposing is very rich with formative assessment. In terms of the rationale why we selected the proposed model, it is extremely student-centered. It is research-based. It's applicable to all classrooms, not just the academic core, but our electives as well. It fits well within the foundations of our PLCs because we know that's a very important district initiative. It solidly supports our 4 PLC questions. It supports promotes a very powerful student-centered learning environment. And it also supports effective instructional planning and instructional delivery. It also defines the role. One of the characteristics we set out for in adopting a model was we wanted something that defined the role of a formative assessment in every classroom because we realized how powerful formative assessment is for student achievement. And this model will do that. It also will help our teachers design and deliver lessons that meet the needs of individual learners. It supports the science of teaching, that's that research base, but it also honors the fact that our teachers will have creativity and flexibility and to use their own teaching styles, as board policy states, in order to help their students achieve and meet the needs of their individual students. And once again, it's going to promote engagement, creativity, critical thinking, and student achievement. A little bit about the model itself. It's really framed around 3 questions that a student would ask. It's from the student's point of view. So a student would usually ask their teachers, where am I going, and where am I now, and how can I close the gap? So the 7 strategies are actually framed around those 3 questions. In terms of where am I going, the strategy number 1 says we're going to provide our students with a very clear and understandable vision of the learning target. They're going to know what they're learning, why they're learning it, and their teachers will know that as well. Strategy 2 says that we're going to provide them with examples of strong and weak work, so they will always know what they're striving for. Where am I now? This is where we offer them rich, descriptive feedback in terms of, okay, where are you in reaching your goals? Where are you in reaching the learning target? And then we also we're going to teach them to self-assess where they are in relation to the target and to set goals for themselves and to know themselves, like I am at point A and I know I need to reach point G, and they'll know the steps it takes to get there. The model will help us with that for all of our students. And then the third question is, how can I close the gap? And so strategy number 5 means we're going to design very focused lessons on one learning target or quality at a time. We're going to, strategy 6, teach our students focused revision, which means helping them realize, you know, what one thing can they improve upon at a time to reach their goals. And then strategy number 7, we're going to engage our students in self-reflection and then help them keep track of their learning target growth and help them share their learning. I wanted to capture, just in terms of the 7 strategies, a little bit more about what that really means. And these are statements straight from the research from Rick Stiggins. A framework of strategies is going to organize assessment for learning practices focused on the needs of the learner. And the most powerful part of this model is it is absolutely focused on the needs of individual learners. It's a collection of actions that strengthen a student's sense of self-efficacy. It's very important that our students realize that effort leads to achievement. And when you realize that your effort leads to achievement, you're motivated and you're really going to be able to achieve at high levels. And it is a sequence of effective research-based practices that develop in students the patterns of thought they need to substantially improve their own achievement, because they are absolutely in partnership with their teachers in using this model. The core beliefs of the model is that, number 1, it will help students see themselves as learners, because when they see themselves as learners, that really helps them to improve academically. And number 2, we know that teachers are assessment users and they make critical decisions, instructional decisions, but so do our students. So a core belief of our model is that students are assessment users and critical instructional decision makers. And 3, that our teachers and our students are in a partnership in the assessment and learning process. And 4, we need our teachers to have the tools they need to apply knowledge of sound assessment practices that makes all of this happen. This slide kind of captures kind of where we are, maybe an average classroom right now, and that same classroom with the full implementation of the model. An average classroom now, we're working hard on being standards-based. We had a tremendous principals meeting this morning, elementary principals meeting. It was just off the chain this morning. And we were focusing on just having those standards-based conversations, because what we're finding is that sometimes our focus is on the journey and it's on the activities, and that our classrooms are teacher-centered. And when you ask our students what they're learning, sometimes they tell you what they did versus what they learned. We do have teachers who are tremendous, and we do have assessment practices that are in place. They're monitoring, they're guiding, they're diagnosing, they're extending individual students, but it's sporadic. We do rely on our summative assessment data to improve student performance, and our students don't take ownership for their learning, and our technology is primarily used by teachers, even though that is radically becoming a different picture. But let's look at a classroom that's implementing the 7 strategies. Number 1, our focus is going to be on that learning target, on the destination, not only meeting it, but exceeding it. It's going to be a student-centered classroom, and the students are going to be able to convey to you not only what they're learning, but why they're learning, and what they're doing, those activities they do, how does that connect to their goals and what they're learning. The assessment practices that are used are going to be deliberate and consistent. So we're still going to monitor and guide and diagnose, and we're going to gather information, but now it's going to be on a deliberate, consistent basis. The students are going to know why they're completing their task, and our technology is going to be used by our students to show their teachers how they're meeting those learning targets. I have 4 different committee members that I'm going to call up. I think it's very important that you hear from each of their perspectives. So we're going to share with the perspective of a junior high principal, and that's Andy Hagman. Perspective of a Spanish teacher at Owsley Junior High, that's Myra Rojas. A kindergarten teacher at Veda Knox Elementary, that's Laurel Coe. And a parent and community member, David Wilbakes. So each one is going to come up and address you with their perspectives on the model.
Not all at once. Ms. Pope, that's not a lot of support right there behind you.
I'd love to go first.
There you go.
Mr. Hageman, why don't you come on up?
President Hogg, members of the board, Dr. Cavazos. It was a fascinating journey being on the instructional model committee, having the chance to take a step back and look very big picture at how we deliver instruction in our district and where we're wanting to go and what's going to work best for our students, for our teachers. It was laborious at times because there's a lot at stake. And you realize that when you're coming up with an instructional model, you are really setting a bar for everyone. The thing that appeals, well, one of the things that appeals to me about the model that we chose is that it's a very nice blend of working within a structure that we've been trying to create within our district of professional learning communities. That's something that I believe in very, very strongly. I think that the collaborative aspect of teachers working together, being focused on the standards that we have to teach and that we have to have our students learn, in combination with another aspect of this model, and that is that it's very student-centered. It's not explicitly stated, but as you probably could tell, there's a hint of mastery learning within this model, and the idea is that students are aware of what they're learning, how they should be learning it, and what's the pace at which they should be learning it. And so those two things in collaboration, teachers working together to deliver a good product, a good timely product, and students being more aware of their own learning, that is a blend that is very powerful for us. And this framework is not limiting at all. As a matter of fact, it's very foundational for what we're going to do. I don't think that teachers are going to feel a sense of constraint whatsoever. I think, as a matter of fact, it's a solid undergirding to say, okay, this is really, frankly, this is what we've been doing, but let's incorporate a little bit more on the student end of it and help their awareness of where they're going and what it is that they're doing on a daily basis. And so that's one of the very appealing things to me about this model is the integration of the PLC aspect and the student mastery and the student understanding of where we're trying to go. So I'm very excited about it. I think it's an excellent choice.
Thank you, Mr. Agnew.
Welcome.
Dr. Cavazos, Mr. Hogg, and members of the board, I am enthusiastic and happy to be here tonight. I always said if I ever got up here for any reason, I would definitely speak from the heart, and I intend to do that today as well. I would like to say I am one of your teachers. My journey that has led me here tonight has been a long journey spanning several years. I have been a supporter of the goals of Arlington ISD probably from day one. So enthusiastic to be a teacher of yours. Tonight, I'm asking you for some consideration to help support the instructional model that I, as a teacher, have always felt was lacking and that we need. I'm overjoyed to be here today representing teachers that are early childhood teachers, teachers I care about, and the youngest students in Arlington ISD. Even though I speak for the youngest students in our district, we need the framework of an instructional model so we can properly do our job, so that we can most effectively meet the needs of our students. Even though they're young students coming into our schools, they're valuable people in our lives and in our community, and they can do wonderful things, but we need the support. And as your teacher, I am asking for the framework that Ms. Pope so eloquently spoke of. All the points that she made are things that touch my life every day. And I'm asking for that structure so that you're not taking away the science of, or the art of my teaching, but you're supporting the science of it through research-based instructional practices that not only supports me as a continuing educator, but can also embrace and support a brand new teacher as I once was in your district. I feel like this model supports not only the student, but sometimes we forget the teacher too. It supports me in my continuing professional development that I felt like I have needed and desire and want to keep the passion that has brought me here today in front of you. And so in closing, my message is short, but it is from the perspective of a teacher and from my heart. I'm asking for your consideration and support of the 7 strategies instructional model. And I thank you.
Hello to Board President Hogg and Dr. Cavazos and all board members. I honestly want to say that the perspective was that the instructional model added to what we already have in place. I think as a teacher and as an elective teacher, this is really good because a lot of people tend to kind of assume that electives could just mold to anything that's thrown at them. So I was really excited. I was really excited to hear how, I think one of the things that I love about this model was that it aligned itself with our goals for the students, and those are for our students to reach their full potential in relevance, innovation, and rigor. It was not adding to, it wasn't, I think for me, it was not stressful in the fact that it's doing what we already have in place. And that brought a lot of relief to me, that I didn't have to start a new methodology or new instructional model. It's already what we could play with what we already have. It allows teachers to truly be designers of their instruction, not just planners. This is a key because I think that as a new or veteran teacher, we all have a responsibility to clearly define the learning targets to our students and assess if they show mastery of this learning targets. What I love about this model is that the teacher is consistently reflecting on instruction, and I think it's extremely important because as a teacher, we constantly feel overwhelmed with other administrative and other commitments that we may have. But the student is also reflective of his or her learning processes. One major component is that it's student-centered and student-friendly. Secondly, it allows students to self-assess themselves. And I was part of the critical thinking committee, and that was very important to me, that our students are taking responsibility and ownership of their learning. It focuses on good instruction. It is result-oriented because it implements ongoing formative and summative assessments. The second major component that I really liked about this model was it encourages the teacher to give effective feedback to the students, and also get their peers to give them effective feedback. And I think that's, as a teacher for almost 8 years, I think our kids really need to not only hear from the teacher, but hear from their peers and self-assess, and what is it that they're really learning, their thinking processes. And this model offers that. This really helps the student to immediately understand his strengths or what he or she needs to work on. The model provides teachers to have this two-way communication that creates a partnership between the teacher and the student. And I think it's a great way for teachers to build rapport with their kids, because a lot of the time we feel disconnected with them. Thus giving students ownership and accountability over their learning. Lastly, I think that the model offers great 21st century skills, such as critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, which is what we're trying to aim for as a district. And I summarize by saying that as a district, we're getting demographically diversified. So I think it definitely fits the mold of differentiated instruction and assessment. It allows the students' learning to be individualized through diverse abilities, interests, and learning profiles. The learning is relevant and meaningful to the students to help each student succeed through its diverse assessments and instructional design. So I think it's extremely important that we definitely meet the needs of all learners. And that's why I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
President Hogg, Dr. Cavazos, and members of the board. Wow, as a parent, I can say I'm really excited about this instructional model. As you guys know, I've been a champion for our gifted learners in this district, while at the same time realizing that we have huge challenges at helping those students that are struggling to perform at level. We simply, as a district, need to do a better job of helping those students that are struggling, as well as allowing those students who can soar to soar, and not forgetting those in between as well. Well, I can say this model reaches all those students. It was a huge paradigm shift when you start thinking about instructional models, and typically when we talk about teaching, we're focused on the journey that Renee said. This model switches that and focuses on the destination and makes sure not only the teacher, but all students are focused on what that objective is and how to get there and where am I in that process, and allows the use of those formative assessments to provide critical data to not only help those teachers, but to help those students see where they are. The amazing thing about this model, you know, I guess the key point that made me a fan of this model is when we were getting ready to vote on it, several of the teachers we had at my table, we had an AP history teacher, we had an ELL instructor, an elementary, and I think someone for, and 2 other teachers. Several of those teachers took some of the strategies back after we had our day-long instruction on the model and briefing on the model. They took some of those strategies, 1 or 2 or 3, handful, back to their classroom and immediately saw huge shifts in their students in terms of motivation. I can't stress enough the ability of this model to motivate students to take ownership of their learning and help them get to that next level. As an experiment, we recently had report cards come back, and you know, my son, who's a good student, he's more the math and science side. We weren't too happy with his social studies grade. So based on the knowledge I know about this model, I said, well, let's sit down and let him make goals and talk about where his gap is and what he thinks he needs to do about it. And instead of the blank stares or the quick questions and the dismissal you typically get from a 4th grader, he sat down and he wrote it out and was motivated to come up with creative ideas on ways he could perform better in social studies. And I was blown away. That's something I didn't expect for my son, especially when it comes to a subject like social studies, unfortunately, which he's not as motivated about as science and math. We've seen a huge difference in his attitude. So I would encourage the board to definitely support this model. It's a very powerful one, and it's a pivotal piece in achieving the goals of our strategic plan. So thank you.
That's so exciting. Woo! Okay. Budget. I don't have a budget. I mean, I do have a strategic plan budget, but right now, the costs for training are really going to be contingent on our implementation design. And as I said before, when I did the research the first time, a couple of the districts said to me that the implementation was more important than the selection. And so with your approval, that's where we'll go next. And so what I do know is that each one of our teachers and administrators will need a text. And it's a getting started text, and as well as the actual full text on the model itself. In terms of our next steps, with the approval of the model tonight in January, we have bold plans. We're going to establish an implementation committee, many of which are currently on the instructional model committee, because they're staying on ship. And then we're also going to establish a steering committee. We have campuses, many of the campuses represented on the committee would like to pilot. And we've also had other administrators come up and ask me, Renee, can we be a part of this? And so we're going to be finalizing and selecting our campuses and teachers to pilot the model for the spring semester, conducting training for those individuals, going on some site visits with the committee so they can see the model fully implemented, and starting our training with not only our C&I staff, but the instructional coaches as well. And so in February, we'll start the design of the implementation plan for fall 2014. And we will select campuses and teachers who will pilot. They'll start their pilot process in February. We'll start collecting a lot of data from them because we want to make sure that we know all of the hiccups and the bumps, and we're going to leave no stone unturned to try to figure out what is the best way to roll this out for the whole entire district. And so they have graciously agreed to go through that process, and we'll conduct some more site visits. And then lastly, I have August 2014 until question mark, because we are definitely talking about a multiple year implementation until we get full implementation of the model, because it really is a paradigm shift. But I think it will provide the tools we need to help our teachers safely do it, especially with the implementation process this spring. Questions?
Thank you, Ms. Pope. At this time, we'll take any questions from colleagues. Seeing no lights out while other board members are thinking about questions. Ms. Pope, I'll ask the one question. I think it's a great concept. I love the model. The one question I'd ask, and I'm sure your committee's discussed this many times, does it still give the teachers the freedom to be a teacher? You know, they're professionally trained to be teachers. Do they still have, the one thing I don't, and I hear the complaints from teachers, from other models, other things around the country, is they don't want to walk in and say, here's exactly what you have to do for the day. That's not giving them the freedom and the art to be a teacher and be a professional, which they are. Does this model still give them those freedoms to take some of your model learnings possibly and implement in their own style, if I'm making my question clear?
They will have the optimal freedom as promised to them in board policy. It's highly adaptable. It honors the good practice that we're currently doing right now. It's going to blend nicely with the other programs that we already have in place in the district. It's not prescriptive at all. It really is, in the true essence, it's a framework.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions from colleagues? Dr. Rush.
Thank you, President Hogg. Ms. Pope and committee, thank you very much. I know this is a ton of work, lots of moving parts and lots of opportunities potentially to have derailment with such a large committee and many personalities, and I'm sure there was spirited debate. It's
spirited, nice word. That's
yes.
a good word.
As one trustee, we're so pleased to have this new direction. We, in listening to our students, deep down inside, they want to have that value. They perceive the value of learning, and I think this will help them be those lifelong learners that we're wanting them to be. Having such a vast representation of all the different interest groups, if you will, participate in this process was key, and thank you for that. It will be a multi-year thing. I love that there's flexibility in it. Our students have told this board very clearly they want relevance, and that seems to be the underpinning of this model, is to show them why. That's all over the place in your presentation. I greatly appreciate that. That will go a long, long way for our children to be motivated and empowered. I also see the opportunity, we love the idea of project-based learning, and this, to me, just explodes the potential for that. And what Mr. Wilbanks hit on, addressing gifted and talented and all across the spectrum, is huge. One question that I have, seeing it is could be a self-paced type of model. Let's say you have that gifted and talented student who they've hit those performance marks. They've demonstrated the critical thinking. They've demonstrated mastery of whatever that target objective is. Will we have the framework for them to go beyond and still be challenged? Let's say we have a first grader or second grader and they've mastered that stuff and they're ready for second, third, fourth grade TEKS or whatever it may be. Will we be able to accommodate those children?
Absolutely. What should happen is they'll get whatever the next level learning target is above where they are. So I mean, the learning target should match. It should challenge all the learners. So if they've already met the one that's for the state of Texas that's based on the TEKS, then their teachers will have the flexibility to just keep setting higher and higher learning targets for them. And then once again, and they will go through the same process of setting goals, knowing how they're going to get there, being able to connect what they're doing to reaching that target, being able to communicate that, being able to self-assess the whole picture.
That's great. And so this almost, I have a Montessori background. This seems similar to a Montessori concept where the children, essentially, they'll demonstrate the mastery of that skill to the teacher, but it's pretty much a student-driven process, at which point the teacher makes that assessment, whether it's a formal or a formative, typically it is, and then they can move on to that next level on their own. So what you're describing to me, if that's accurate, is truly the shift where it is a teacher as a facilitator of learning versus the old adage of the Charlie Brown classroom experience, if you know what I mean.
It's a true partnership where the teacher and the student will know what the target is. The teacher will be supporting the student in reaching that target, and once they meet it, drafting an additional target for them. For the students that are struggling, meeting them where they are. It really does have the ability to do all of those things. The first set of targets, of course, are going to be based on the standards set forth by the state.
Mm-hmm.
But the assessments, the formative assessment is really what drives it, that allows you to know that this student is ready to move on. And the assessment is so closely matched to what their target is. So it's not it's not generic. The assessments are very much in concert with the target. It's a very rich system by which the students, it's kind of like almost like an extreme makeover for homes. It's an extreme makeover. It's just that extreme in terms of being student driven.
It almost seems like there's no possible way to have an environment where you're teaching to the test, so to speak. It kind of throws that out the window is what I'm hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you'll be teaching to a learning target.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. One final question on the implementation, the design implementation, as far as the campus, choosing the different campuses. Will our area superintendents be involved in that process to provide input?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
At this point, a lot of the campuses actually at all levels have volunteered. All levels, like elementary, junior high, and high school, we have a nice representation from every group. And so, yes, all that will be blessed by our area superintendents wherever we get started. Because our pilot group has to be very committed to willing to try it and implement it with fidelity so that we truly can use the work they're doing to map it out for the rest of the district. So it's very important that we have the right people involved.
Thank you. Appreciate everything very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Mr. Pompa.
Thank you, President Hogg. Ms. Pope, congratulations. You made it. I know this has been a long journey, and you guys have had a lot of work that went into this, and this was a huge part of our strategic plan. We're excited from the beginning. I think when you first came out here and you began to present your framework for figuring out what framework was you were going to choose, we were pretty excited about that from the beginning. So we like to see. We like what we see. I don't think you need to be worried about trying to sell this to us. We've been with you guys, from day one because we appreciated the process. I think the process was great. The makeup of the committee. One of my big concerns was to make sure that it was acceptable by the teachers because they're the ones that are going to have to implement it on a daily basis. And so I'm excited to hear that the teachers do support it and that you do see it as a valuable tool to make you more effective teachers. But frankly, my favorite part of this is that it's student-centered. And I think as we, I've heard the word retool used up here, as we retool this district, that's been the biggest part of our focus, has been to make everything about the student, make sure that the student is at the heart of everything that we do, of our strategic plan, of every strategy that we utilize, make sure that we're always keep that in mind, that it's all about the students. And the more we do that, I think the better the entire system will be, from the curriculum to here what we do, everything. I do have a couple of questions. When will we get some dollars on the cost of implementation in terms of a budget?
Always important.
Maybe maybe around March. We have to start the implementation process and to figure out what is the best way. I'm going to work really closely with the DIDC as well, because I really appreciate their feedback. They're a tremendous group of people. And so once we get into the implementation and we have a sense of what's going to be the best direction, then we'll be able to assign some dollars to it.
And I'm assuming you'll be working with Ms. Powell on this as well, and at one time we will get some information in terms of, what the impact of the budget is going to be, and how are we going to approve the funds to cover the expenses of this?
Mr. Pompa, the funding actually has already been budgeted as part of our strategic plan budget that the board adopted back in June. The entire budget included mostly it's in training. That money is in training. And I'm going to put Ms. Powell on the spot if she knows exactly how much.
And I don't need specific dollars at this point, but so
it is
this
budgeted.
is part of I remember that we
That's
approved
correct.
additional training budget.
That's correct.
Because of the strategic plan. So this is going to be part of that.
And Ms. Powell has how much has been budgeted so far, not that that would be the extent of the funding.
Right. For the training alone, there was a little over $500,000, about $550,000. And there was also, separate from that, a little bit of money for some travel and materials, some of which they've spent as they've worked with the committee, but there's $500,000 plus some in the budget already for training that they can use.
Okay, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Absolutely, go ahead.
I just wanted to expand on that. So if we're approving the model adoption, are we approving it with a cap on dollars? Because we don't know yet.
Right.
But we do know what we have budgeted,
That's
so.
correct. That's correct. And if we were to exceed that, we would budget amendment, bring back to the board and things like that. I don't anticipate that this time of year and the rest of what's left of the year, we would be going over that 500,000. I don't think that would be the case. But if we needed to, we would come back to the board for an amendment.
That's good. I don't have any problem with funding it. My issue is I don't want to write a blank check.
The second question I had was, I'm excited to see that teachers and campuses are ready to pilot this, because as much as we have thrown both at the administration and at the school level over the last couple of years, again, I'm concerned about giving them yet one more thing to do. So what do you say to that for the schools that have not volunteered yet, that eventually we're going to say, okay, now we have a new instructional model that we have to train you on, and how do we get the time away from everything else they're trying to do? Because I mean, the train's still running, and we're trying to remodel it as it's moving. So, talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
We're really going to have to be very, very careful, because it's very, very important that it doesn't feel like it's one more thing, because then that would not make for a successful implementation. So we're studying those things, and the implementation is going to have to take all those things into consideration. I think a lot of feedback that we'll get from the implementation, and then from teachers in general, about just what is the best way to roll this out, because we do know that there's a lot going on right now.
Sure.
And so we're going to be very, very conscious of that while we design how we're going to roll it out. It will definitely be a part of the I guess, the formula for implementation.
I guess what I'd like to see is, this is what we're going to start doing, this is what we're going to stop doing, because it's no longer relevant to where we're going. And so instead of just continuing to add more, it seems to me like if we're doing this, maybe we're not doing this, or instead of this particular training that we were going to do, we're going to do this training. So kind of a net zero, result in terms of the load on the teachers. Because if we're taking something new on, there may be something that we don't need to do anymore. Type of training, particular training, that kind of thing. So I'd like to see that as you put it together in terms of, how are we balancing this out without, adding an additional, day or 2 days of work to our staff.
We are going to integrate it with all of the programs that we know that are standing programs. We're going to do as much integration as possible. We're really going to do everything possible to lessen the load, so that it doesn't feel like that it's one more thing. It doesn't feel like it's burdensome. we're gonna like leave no stone unturned, because that's the most essential part of the work that we are getting ready to face, is making sure that it's well received, well planned, so that when it is rolled out, that all the teachers in the district will feel about the same way that the teachers on the committee feel about it.
Yeah, and then the implementation absolutely is the most important part. I mean, because it's great to have what almost sounds too good to be true in terms of what it can do, but if we don't implement it right, then it's for naught. So I would like to get a little bit more detail once you understand it better, once you've tested it out and piloted different things on specifically what is going to be the logistics of rolling it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pompa. Mr. Barron.
Thank you, President Hug. Ms. Pope, thank you for doing this for us, and thank you to the committee. And thank you especially for coming in and getting grilled by my committee for about an hour the other night. This sounds simple. Where you going, how you going to get there? There's obviously a lot more going to be under the hood once we start teaching the teachers. Okay. When you say there's a learning target, is that the TEAC or the objective, the SE? We have a learning target. Is that a daily occurrence?
It may be, and sometimes not. A learning target, what they do is they take the standards and they determine if they're reasoning standards, are they knowledge standards, are they performance standards, and based on they actually have to decode the standards, the TEKS, and based on that, and then based on what part of the standard you're doing, then they design that learning target. Sometimes the learning target can be accomplished in a day, and sometimes the learning target will be accomplished in 3 days or 4 days. It just depends on it really depends on what the target is. So a learning target really does act a little bit differently than a learning objective, but it serves the same purpose. So they are first and foremost based on the text.
And the buy-in you got from high school level, was it the same as the buy-in you're getting from elementary level, from the teachers? The enthusiastic grasping of this program?
Well, on our committee, we had enthusiastic buy-in on the committee. But I think what you're referencing is the school district that we visited, their implementation program, it was a 3-year implementation. The first 2 years were voluntary. The 3rd year was mandatory. And during the 3rd year is when most of the middle school and junior highs came on board. And so it was a little bit slower for them.
They started the implementation at the lower levels? Or
Well,
at
the
high
lower
school?
levels volunteered for the first 2 years. And the middle schools and high schools were volunteered the 3rd year. They had to come on board.
Yeah, they'll be voluntold.
Right, they were voluntold.
Yeah. Okay, does the program at all address classroom discipline as a separate entity? Because if there's no discipline, then none of this is going to work.
It doesn't address classroom discipline, but what we know from research is that when kids are engaged in what they're learning and they're active and they feel like that it's relevant and they have a role in their learning, that dramatically decreases discipline. A teacher actually came to present this model to us. He teaches 7th grade in Kentucky, and he is now travels and talks about it because he's done some well with implementation. But he said that the laser-like focus that you have on your learning target, not just the teacher but the students as well. And he said the fact that they experience so much success, and that when they have challenges, that they're getting good feedback. That strategy number 2, where they can see strong work and weak work. They know the work that's expected of them. They're striving for that. A lot of that goes a long way with decreasing discipline. Because if you're meeting a student where they are, most likely they're not as frustrated as they would ordinarily be, and maybe less likely to act up.
Mr. Barron, Dr.
Yeah.
Cavazos has something to add, if you wouldn't
Yes,
mind.
Mr. Barron, I would add that this year, as part of our strategic plan, year 2, we're developing that comprehensive discipline intervention or management system. And so as that, it's kind of working in parallel, and so these are the big pieces for year 2.
Mm-hmm.
And as that's happening, we're mindful of the instructional model. And so they're happening at parallel paces so that we can make sure those two things align. But Mr. Hill is leading the effort on the discipline management for this year. That'll be, again, a K-12 discipline strategy, in addition to the engagement that we talked about tonight.
Great. Now that Mr. Hill's going to have so much free time. Will this plan replace any ongoing programs? So this is sort of what Mr. Pompa was getting at, that are we just layering something on top of everything that already is in place? Are we canceling any programs?
Well, the great thing about what we adopted is that it's a framework, what we're proposing. It's a framework. So it's very adaptable. It's more likely to mold and support what's going on than to replace it. So it really does feel like a framework. It's not restrictive in any way. It's very flexible. And so it's going to get along well with the programs that we have in place. Now, I'm sure that once we start with our having discussions about what are best practices and implementing our model, those things that we are currently doing that are in conflict with that, then we will work on.
Ms. Pope, Dr. C has one little small piece to add.
Mr. Barron, I'd like to add that this year, also as part of year 2 of our strategic plan, we're doing program evaluations. And that's Dr. Carter is conducting those to determine the programs that we're evaluating, whether we should continue those or not. I think the bigger picture here is where we invest money, and I'll just speak of Title I and other funding sources we have, but that's just one big example. The task is going to be that we invest that money in support of the framework that we're proposing tonight. So that, because we know that as we invest money, Title I and other funding sources, that's where programs come from. That's where different initiatives come from. This adds that clarity to that and that framework really of where we're investing for professional development, for new programs and initiatives and things like that, and how it fits in and the alignment so that it doesn't feel, as Renee has mentioned before, like one more thing, that it's actually aligned. So program evaluation is the big key in terms of this year for determining whether we're going to continue or repurpose funding and things like that. But bigger picture, when we start developing those bigger budgets like Title I and Title II and other funding sources, Comp Ed and things like that, how does it align to the model? It adds that clarity so that it's a guide. And we're not just investing funds in programs because they may or may not work.
Thank you. What will this do to Curriculum Central? Will that still be a valid place for teachers to go for lessons?
Yes. Because right now, of course, we're working through the curriculum audit recommendations as it relates to curriculum. And so the instructional model is actually it's like the driver of the curriculum. It supports the curriculum. And so we will support the model through curriculum documents and through Curriculum Central.
Thank you.
They'll work in concert.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Ms. Sullins.
Thank you, President Hogg. Ms. Pope, I would like to congratulate you. We'll wait till the vote on that, but I will like to thank you for, I believe that the work of this that you have done and this committee has done is some of the most important and essential work that's going to benefit students for a very long time. So I'm so pleased to see the depth of your commitment and the tremendous amount of work that you all have done trying to bring the strategic plan to reality. I do have a just a couple of questions. But first, a comment. We talked a lot about implementation, and I know you haven't gotten there yet. You know, you said earlier on that implementation is more important than even the selection, so I know that we're going to get to that. I just want to encourage, and I know that we'll have that with this group, is that as we do implement and as it is rolled out, that we provide tremendous support for the classroom teacher, so that it is not a, you know, that they are given every tool they need, adequate time, adequate resource, and adequate coaching, and adequate time to listen to their feedback too, which I'm sure will be the case. But I believe that I agree with you that implementation is the next major step, and all of this tremendous work that you have done, you know, want to make sure that we allow adequate time to, you know, get through that barrier. I did, you mentioned in your slides that, and you've mentioned before, several times this evening, about campuses that are piloting the new instructional model. Can you tell me how many campuses will be piloting? Sorry.
I could probably give you an estimate. I think right now we probably maybe have as many as 15.
15. Do you know if you have campuses of all levels, elementary, junior high, high school, that are participating in the pilot?
I do.
Okay, very good. And when they were, when they volunteered, and I'm so glad to hear that we had so many of our campuses eager to volunteer to participate, was that volunteer process something that came through the administration ranks, or did the teachers have any opportunity to weigh in and say, you know, yes, or how did that work?
Well, the times that I presented it to the principals, both at LLT and just recently, afterwards, a couple of principals came up and said that they wanted to be a part of the pilot. Many of the committee members volunteered their campuses, and some of the committee members volunteered, you know, their child's campuses. You know, so.
Yes, Mr. Wilbanks.
So I mean, it all came through voluntary. It just when I talked about it, the committee, of course, were like, "Oh yes, we're ready to do this." And then the principals came up and said, "You know, Renee, I'd like to be on the first round." It was all voluntary.
I appreciate your work. I'm looking forward to the next steps, and I want to thank everyone involved, including the board, superintendent, that once again this evening we find ourselves talking about teaching and learning. And I am so glad to see the amount of time and effort that's put into thought leadership for the most essential job we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Mr. Hibbs.
Ms. Pope, thank you. I appreciate your presentation. I appreciate your committee, and I appreciate the words of the speakers tonight that spoke on behalf of their support of moving in this direction with the instructional model. One word that was used early on, even my buddy over here, Mr. Pompa, used the word framework, and that's what you've got in place, or that you're looking at putting in place, is framework. You've got a highly engaged board up here. You've got you have educators. You've got those of us that have spouses that are educators or were educators, such as myself. You've got activists. You've got those that hold very tight purse strings, that are fiscal responsible, you know, really pushes. And then you have just plain parents. It's our natural instinct is to say, what's the nuts and bolts here? You know, what's going to be the ultimate deliverables? And I teach this over and over again when I'm consulting with sales reps that's in my business, because we come up with the same type of plan. We come up with an ultimate goal. And your ultimate goal is what we have listed here, is that we want to be able to meet what we've set out in our strategic plan. And we're working in that direction. And you have these strategies, and you've putting timelines to these strategies, which are the absolute right thing to do. Once you've set your ultimate goal, then you set your strategies. You start putting your timelines to it. What we tend to do, and this is just people in general, is we like to set our goal and then talk about the tactics, but we never get those strategies in place. And that's what you've done very well here, is put those strategies in place. And I'm excited that at some point in the future, you're going to be bringing us the actual tactics that's going to be involved in this. And that's what I want to remind the board. That's what I want to remind the audience. Because there's going to be things that people are saying, well, what about start times? What about classroom sizes? What about, but those are all the tactics that go into place. But until you have that great ground or foundation that we're talking about with the strategies, the dollars, we don't have a price tag on dollars. We've been able to allocate these funds, and that will be able to come. So I applaud the committee again for a board. I think we want to see those deliverables as quickly as we can because we're excited about this process, but we need to allow the system to work. So continue down the line with the strategies that you have in place, and then we're excited to hear back from you about what those, that potential for implementation of these individual pieces will be.
Mr. Hibbs, you want to put that in the form of a motion?
I think that would be a great thing. Everything I just said, wrap it up.
That's not how motion works, Mr. Hibbs.
If somebody wants to help me wordsmith what I just said, because I don't remember, I'm more than happy to do that.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to move forward and approve the recommended instructional model proposal.
And I'll second it.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll second it. I'll second it.
I'll give it to Ms. Solons to my left. We have a motion by myself, a second by Ms. Solons. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All trustees present, all trustees vote in the affirmative. Once again, on behalf of the board, you never you know something's going well when people are excited about instructional models. So thank you to the committee and all your hard work. We have some other exciting pieces that are going to be held. So, kidding. Okay. Up next, we have action item C. We have action item C, consider and take action on a resolution appointing consultants and directing staff and consultants to prepare for issuance and sale of bonds. This is item page 11 in your handbook to the board. At this time, we've issued a total of 197, well, this will take us up to 197.5 million. We are issuing $17.61 million in bonds. At this time, we'll take a motion from the board.
Move to approve to take action on the resolution appointing consultants and directing staff and consultants to prepare for issuance and sale of bonds.
I have a motion by Ms. Pena. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Pena and a second by Mr. Hibbs. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All trustees present, all trustees vote in the affirmative. Ms. Powell, we can issue these bonds. Up next, we have action item D, consider a resolution requesting the City of Arlington prohibit the sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption within 300 feet of public schools. This is page 16, which I will read to the board for this resolution that we are issuing. Resolution. A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Arlington Independent School District requesting the City of Arlington to prohibit the sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption within 300 feet of public schools. Resolution. Whereas the City of Arlington voters passed a local option liquor election permitting the sale of liquor for off-premise consumption on November 5th, 2013. Whereas Section 1.04A1 of the City of Arlington Occupation Taxes and License Code prohibits the sale of liquor within 100 feet of public schools. Whereas Section 109.33 of the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Code allows city councils to set the distance limit at 300 feet of public schools. And whereas the Arlington Independent School District Achieve Today, Excel Tomorrow strategic plan includes a goal that the AISD will provide a safe and secure environment. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Trustees, Arlington Independent School District, that we approve this. This resolution will go to the City Council if approved by us, giving our recommendation before they officially vote on the distance. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the resolution as read by Mr. Hogg.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Barron. We have a motion by Mr. Barron, a second by Mr. Hibbs. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. 7 trustees present, 7 trustees vote in the affirmative. We have a resolution. Please deliver this to the City Council. Next, we have discussion action item A, consider staffing ratios for 2014-15 budget. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Hogg. And this evening, we'd like to visit with the board about our staffing ratios as we gear up for staffing in the spring semester. And we have discussed this with the Finance Committee of the board. And so Mr. Hill is here to give a presentation regarding our staffing ratios.
Good evening, President Hogg, board members, and Dr. Cavazos. Again, I'm here to discuss the recommended staffing ratios for 2014-15. And I'd like to start off by saying that moving forward, we're not recommending any changes to what was approved last year when we went through the staffing process. Board policy, CE locals, says that, staffing ratios shall meet or exceed state standards and shall be approved by the board before beginning the staffing process. As we've talked about earlier today, we're getting ready to start that as soon as possible next year, and so this is the first step in that in getting board approval. 13-14 general budget, almost 90% of the entire budget comes from payroll, and so that's why it's very critical that we, I think I heard it mentioned earlier, hold tight straps on this and make sure that we get it right. And so as you can see with the budget, the size of ours, almost 90% deals with payroll, so very important there. An overview, campus administration and district departments, human resources, curriculum and instruction, and finance work hand in hand to collaboratively to ensure staffing is aligned with the priorities of our strategic plan. Student enrollment and program need is very important to emphasize that those two things drive the staffing, student enrollment and the programs that are at the campuses. Staffing of teachers is based on district enrollment projections, and it's a formula to it. So we'll get projections, and then we'll staff our campuses based on those projections. Key points to emphasize is that elementary staffing is driven by state compliance ratios and district initiatives. We all know that the state says K4, and there's more slides here that come a little bit later. K4, there's a 22-to-1, and then the district has a target for 5-6. Secondary principals have the discretion in terms of the subject area on how to expend their local FTEs to best meet the needs of their campus. Secondary staffing is also driven by the master schedule, which is a very, very tedious process. The area superintendent assists with that process as well. District projects student enrollments by campus each year. HR applies the staffing formulas to yield the number of teachers per grade level at the elementary. Pre-K, state mandate, 22-to-1. Kinder through 4th, same mandate, 22-to-1. 5th and 6th, our target has been 26-to-1. I'm sorry, in 5th grade, 26-to-1, and in 6th grade, a target of 30-to-1. Elementary staffing formulas for our art, music, and PE rotation. That's one per campus for art, PE, and music, and a PE assistant. The orchestra is an itinerant person, and they're about a quarter per campus. One orchestra person services 4 elementary campuses, up to anywhere from 1 to 3. Campuses in excess of 800 students are staffed with an additional PE or music teacher based on the campus need. Orchestra teachers, again, they serve anywhere from 3 to 4 campuses. Elementary staffing formulas, again, with the teacher assistants. Pre-kinder, it's 1-to-1. For every pre-kinder teacher, there's a teacher assistant. In kindergarten, there's a formula that allows for 1 to 4 sections of kinder. There's 1 TA. 5 to 6 sections of kinder, there's 2 TAs, and you can see the rest there. Again, this is a base formula. Additional TAs are allowed if necessary based on a kinder formula to support the teacher conference periods, and that's another formula that's applied on after this one is applied. We got a lot of formulas around here. Thanks, Dr. Carter. Staffing formulas for the secondary schools. The district, again, projects the enrollment by campus. HR utilizes a Moat-Casey model that uses average class sizes to schedule and calculate the number of teachers needed by campus. Again, there's a formula there. The number of teachers equals the projected enrollment times the total class size divided by the number of students per class, again, divided by the classes taught by each teacher. HR does a wonderful job working with the campus leadership, and we go through this formula every year. So, staffing calculator applied for projected enrollment, again, at the junior high level. The core teachers teach 5 out of 7 classes. For the elective teachers, they teach 6 out of 7 classes. And anytime there's a vacancy for whatever reason, the principals have to justify replacing that teacher. At the high school, teachers teach 6 out of 8 classes, and that same justification process is they're working with the area superintendent and the HR department. Again, those have to be justified before we fill those vacant positions. This slide, it talks about we have in 13-14 currently we have in the 5th grade a target class size of 26, but the actual is about 20.8. And the target, again, deals with teacher units allotted through the local funds only. That actual class size considers all funding sources. So there may be more, campus may use some excess funds, title funds or whatever to purchase more teachers, and that in turn drives that class size down. So 5th grade, target 26, actual 20.8. 6th grade is a target of 30, the actual is 23.6. Junior high, 23 is the target with the actual class size of 20, and high school, the target is 27, with the actual class size at the high schools is about 23.8. Special education staffing formulas, again, this is based on the student IEPs and their participation in the general ed program. Special ed has a different formula, and that department works through that very strategically based on those IEPs. Junior high, those instructional arrangements are ABLE, alt curriculum, deaf ed, those programs are very specific to the student needs at those campuses, and that formula is applied to special ed also. Special ed staffing, I'm sorry. It's the exact same thing with the high school. Try to use that formula for the high school special ed staffing. As far as campus support, all levels, there is a principal at every campus. We have an academic dean at the high schools, not at the elementary or junior high. Assistant principals, there's a formula for that. At the elementary, for every between 1 and 1,000 students, you have 1 assistant principal. When you have above 1,000 student enrollment projection or actual enrollment, then you'll be given a second assistant principal. Junior high, there's 2 assistant principals and 1 at the alternative campus. At the high school, 5 APs for less than 2,000 students. 2,000 to 2,999, you have 6, and above 3,000, you have 7 APs. Again, at the alternative campuses, there's 1. Counselors, 1 at the elementary, 2 at the junior high, and at the secondary, at the high school level, the same number of counselors as the APs. Keeping in mind that adjustments may be required due to the impact of House Bill 5 with regard to secondary counselors. We can't nail that down right now because we don't know the direct impact of House Bill 5, and so we'll continue to work through that as we speak. Again, when those stipulations from House Bill 5 are finalized, those counselors will be based on a formulaic assignment also. So everything will go back to a formula, which is yet to be developed because we don't know the impacts of House Bill 5 yet. Campus support staff, secretary at each level, 1 per campus. Attendance clerk, again, there's 1 for less than 800 at the elementary, 2 for greater than 800, 1 at the junior high, and at the high school, same number of APs, we have an attendance clerk. And the other information is there as well. Nurse, 1 per campus, registrar at the high school, PEIMS clerk, and bookkeeper. Athletic coordinator, 1 at the high school, 1 at the junior high. Attendance officers are at the high school level, but they do serve in some capacity where needed at the campuses within their network. 1 librarian per campus, 1 librarian assistant at the high school campus. Again, campus technology manager, 1 at each campus. Land tech, 1 at the secondary, none at the elementary or junior high. Guidance tech or testing facilitator, depending on which the campus needs were at the time when they were assigned back, but there's 1 per campus. One SRO per campus for the junior high and the high school. Security guards, there's none at the elementary, 1 at the junior high, 6 at the high school during the day, and 2 in the evening. Custodians, they are by formula also, as you can see there, the same with the cafeteria monitors. Regarding the security guards at the campuses, there may be adjustments made as needed at the different campuses. So that's something that staff looks at, and we make adjustments where appropriate. And MPE, which is a policy that was approved by the board earlier this year. Principals who have earned the MPE autonomies have the flexibility on whom to hire and or to convert an FTE to discretionary budget. This only applies to the positions that the principal has the discretion to hire. And I think we've identified some campuses that you may be aware of that have this autonomy. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Hill. And to the folks in the audience, MPE stands for Managed Performance Empowerment Program. Mr. Hips.
Mr. Hill, thank you for your presentation, as always. I want to go to the staffing levels at the elementary. Our ultimate, that we're saying, that is it our cap that we're saying for the fifth and sixth grade would be no more than 26-1?
That's the target.
That's our target?
Yes.
Okay. And we set that target for a purpose. We think that 26 and lower is a pretty good number for that age group, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And for the for first or kinder through fourth, we're going 22-1?
Yes, that's by state law.
And that's by state law. The administration, I want to thank you guys for doing this. You sent us the average class size, for every elementary for 5th and 6th grade. In 9 cases, we're actually exceeding the 26-1. Some maybe by 26 and a half. One school I actually see 33-1. In the case of 9 classes over all of our elementaries, what effort are we putting forth? Because I know that not all of our, where we have Title I dollars available, it's easier for a certain school to go ahead and maybe staff additional class. But say in the case of Little Elementary, they've got one of the higher 5th grade classes in the district, and they don't have that extra funding. I want to make sure that we're not in a way keeping a school, because of funding issues, from being able to have the right class size. because I do believe that it's important at this level. And I would really encourage the board, I would encourage the administration that in any way that we can, that we come together and find a way to be able to keep these levels. If we're putting a cap and saying that we want to keep it at 26 to 1 and below, then I really want us to strive to do that. I'd like to see to have us explore each and every way that we can keep these class sizes manageable. Now I'd like also to just switch over to high school counselors. I've been to a few of the different high schools, and the high school counselors have been saying that their numbers are pretty high. I think at Martin it may be 400 students per counselor. But then you've got a school like Seguin that has the same number of counselors as Martin, but their numbers are much lower. Are we doing anything to try to keep it as equitable as possible for the numbers of students rather than saying every school gets so many counselors? You know, we were talking about with the junior highs or even some of the elementary schools, we put in extra AP in some of those schools. Are we doing the same thing for counselors?
Let me just clarify on that presentation section. The adjustments that will be made on HB5 that's listed in that box, it's really needs-based. And so we're going to go through a process, and Nell and Wally and HR, going through a process to determine the adequate staffing for counselors based on the need of the campus and the students.
Okay.
And so that gets a little more complicated because just like guidance techs and versus testing facilitators, we have to weigh a lot of different things in terms of the needs. And so let me give you some examples just off the top of my head, and Nell can shake her head no if it's not. But the graduation plans, the number of repeat freshmen, perhaps, the number of freshmen that you have. Things like that could be considered in a formula so that we are addressing the need and not just saying everybody gets one and there's a greater need and you don't get what you need, basically. That's the work that Nell and Wally and Michael are going, and Michelle are going to get into to bring back at some point some counseling staffing that makes sense at the high school level.
Okay. I think that's exactly what I was asking about and asking for. I saw in one counselor's office, they had a stack of failing students. And the direction is that they're being asked to bring every child that's having issues in a class in to speak with their counselor. And it's really weighing on their time. I think it's absolutely necessary that it be done. I just want to make sure that we're doing it adequately.
And one other component to that, Mr. Hibbs, is we're looking at technology solutions with personal graduation plans and things like that Nell is involved in. The registration, pre-registration, the 8th grade course that we have as part of our strategic plan to inform students and of their options in high school. All these efforts to try to make sure that the students are receiving the proper guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we're going in the right direction there. I think you just answered my question on that. The other, if we can just look to see what we can do, especially when the numbers are, when we're only talking about 9 campuses that we may be overstaffed on a certain grade. I'd like to see us keep at that number or below as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Hibbs. Mr. Barron.
Thank you, President Hogg. My 2 questions are in the same line as Mr. Hibbs's. On that slide, the number of counselors, for example, at Seguin and at Martin are based on the number of APs they have, right? So they don't have the same number of counselors. Am I reading that wrong?
That's correct.
They have as many as they have APs.
Yes.
Okay. And the star thing down there, if HB5 affects us to the point where we need to hire counselors, and I guess that's what we're thinking, right? That we'll have to hire more counselors, then that will affect all the schools in the state. We might ought to start hiring some counselors now.
That's a good
Because
stockpile.
everybody's going to be wanting those same people. That's just a suggestion. One lonely voice in the wilderness, looking ahead. On class sizes, can you go back one to the class size 2013-14? One more, that's it. When we say we have a target 26 in 5th grade, are we saying you cannot have over 26? Are we saying that we will fund that campus so that you'll have at most 26 kids in a class?
What we're saying there is that if you have X number of 5th graders on your campus, we'll divide that number by 26, and that's how many 5th grade teachers you'll get for that campus.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Now, some campuses are Title I, so they can afford to hire an extra teacher on their own.
Exactly.
We, by law, cannot offset that by giving non-Title I campuses another teacher, because that's supplanting, right?
That's correct.
So that's the situation we're in there, is we can't fix it that easy.
I would just add that if we set that as a target and Title I is reducing that because of their Title I funds, then we can use local funds to make sure we stay to that target, I guess is another way of saying it. That's how we do it. When we go to above 26, we add locally. The other just context that I want to provide is sometimes this is not exact in terms of when the class size goes above. And so sometimes it's like in the middle of the year. And so it could be disruptive to try to hire a teacher and bring them in and get into class and divide the class and say, now you have this teacher because we have one more student over the target. And sometimes campuses don't really want that. Now, that's a very general statement. In many cases, they do want that, and we do hire the staff and all that kind of stuff. But I think when we talk about a target, that's why we call it a target, is because sometimes this happens at the middle of the year, towards the end of the year. And so we have to be mindful with what we're adding to the school in terms of staff and when we're adding it and what we're doing in terms of a grade level.
Right.
But all that to say that when we hit that mark at a non-Title I school, we can add locally, because Title I is reducing the target, if you will.
And we're talking about an absolute number, not an average 26, right?
That's an
or
average.
25.
Yeah, that's an average over the classes.
Yes.
Okay.
Over the number of teachers. Now, the other thing that impacts that, without getting into too much technicality here, but is if you have certain grouping of students and things like that, or you do multi-level groupings, then sometimes the teacher may have more than the target because that's how they want to design their classes. And somebody has lower than the target. That's why we use an average.
Thank you. That's all I got, thanks.
Mr. Pompa.
Thank you, President Hogg. So just in following that discussion, if you have 5 classrooms, right, then that number works. You have 130 students, let's say. You get exactly 5 classrooms. You get 26 to 1. But what if you have 140 students? Then you're not creating another classroom. You're just making all the classes a little bit over the 26. Is that generally what you do?
That's correct, yes.
Yes?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
so that's how we end up with the bigger numbers. And we did talk about Little Elementary specifically. Was there something going on? Why, are we able to create another classroom there? Or what was the discussion? You'll have to refresh my
Only
memory.
that it was a target.
Say that
And
again?
Only that, the discussion was only that it was a target. And so what you described, you add another teacher and reduce that when it's half, 26.5 over.
But in a school like that, is there another classroom where you could just go out another teacher
don't-
and all of a sudden you got one more class? I mean, where do you put them?
That's a good question, and I don't know the specifics at Little right now,
Yep.
but if they have the capacity, building-wise to do that. Again, it's making another general statement.
Okay. Oh, and maybe since there's a couple that are, there's one at 33, and then there's little, maybe get us more details in terms of, what can be done at that. And then wanted to just share with the rest of the board some of our committees' discussions. First of all, the recognition that the formulas that we applied last year to the counselors and the guidance techs will be reapplied. So every school will be remeasured to make sure that if a school last year qualified for a guidance tech or a counselor, they still do. And so it could be that a school last year needed one, but maybe this year doesn't, or last year they didn't need one, and this year they do. So we are reapplying all the formulas, correct?
Every time we go to staffing, basically everything starts over.
Right.
And it starts with those projections. So we take every campus through that formula for counselors, APs, teachers, at every grade level, at the elementary level, every year.
And then we discussed some ideas on how to creatively manage some of the resources that we have in terms of giving a little bit more flexibility to the campuses. We also talked about specifically with HB5, not just assuming more counselors are needed, but is there some other different type of support, kind of like what we did with guidance techs, where we said, well, do you really need a counselor, or do you need a testing, or do you really need a testing coordinator, or what was the?
Guidance.
Testing facilitator or guidance technician.
Or a guidance tech. And so rather than just hire a bunch of testing facilitators, we're able to supplement some of those with guidance techs, which is a lower cost. So, the discussion we had was, can we do the same thing at this level with House Bill 5, rather than just hire all counselors? Can we have some other type of support staff that maybe comes at a lower cost? A couple of other items that we looked at with, for example, the nurses, and maybe using, what was the term?
Telemed.
What was the term that we used?
Nurse assistant.
Nurse assistant.
Nurse assistants.
Clinic assistant.
Nurse assistants, which again are a little bit lower cost, but still being overseen by nurses. So those were all some of the. I'm probably forgetting some, but those were some of the ideas that we discussed, and then also the fact that the campuses with that have been given the MPE flexibility are also being given that flexibility when it comes to staffing. So they have some of that that they're taking into account as well. So if I forgot something, Jamie, please feel free to pitch in.
And thank you to the committee, and Dr. Rice will be next, but I did want to thank this was reviewed by the Finance and Accountability Committee, and so I want to thank the committee for really looking into these ratios and helping staff make determinations before they come to the board. Dr. Rice.
Thank you, President Hogg. I definitely echo the discussion that's been going around the dais. If there's something that can be done, it would be very helpful. The reality of the situation is we have overcrowding, and that's impacting everybody in that classroom, teachers and the students. One of the points that has been brought up about that is, and this is from a facility standpoint, that the classroom sizes are the same for the lower levels where we have 22-to-1 ratio versus where we have a target of 26-to-1, but the bodies are a lot bigger. And the targets are higher than that 22-to-1. So I'm curious, do we have to look at decreasing the target, or this is, I think, appropriate timing with our facilities assessment and capital needs steering committee underway? Do we look at, or is it being addressed as far as the size of the classrooms for, 4th, 5th, 6th grade children versus the lower levels? Do you have any information maybe Mr. Carlisle might have from a facility standpoint?
I think that would be a Bob question. I'm not even going to speak that. Yes. All you, buddy.
size of all classrooms has been captured, and it has been compared to the standard we've set, and that is results in what that educational adequacy score is. But we haven't addressed doing anything with any of those. We haven't put any dollars to it or taken a look at what it would mean to capacity.
Okay. So at this point, the classroom size K through 6 is the same. I mean, that's when architects bring designs to us, it's all the same, or is it a different in square footage?
Well, in our new schools, the Adams and the new one, we've made those 5th and 6th grade classrooms bigger.
Bigger, so it will accommodate a 26-to-1 target, and if they go
typically
over,
what we have, the pre-K and the Ks are bigger, and then 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are that mid-size range, and then the 5 and 6 are typically about the same size as the pre-Ks.
Okay, that might be something for us to look at. I know we have a lot of
that has
a lot of dollars already in there.
Potentially has monumental impact on school capacity.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, that's good information. It's definitely something we're all vested in addressing. If there is a way, the more crowded a situation, I think we all know, clutter, whatever, you're going to decrease your efficiency and effectiveness. So, all right, well, thank you very much. Oh, wait. One more question related to the counseling. In our strategic plan, we have listed, and I don't know if it's for this year or next year, implementing that every child has an advocate. And that was, in the design phase, not necessarily a counselor. It would be somebody that would address the needs of that child to make sure they're successful, and that was for every grade. And I don't know, Dr. Cavazos, if you know if that's on target for this year. I don't have any of that in front of me, because I think that would alleviate some of the pressure of the high school counselors that we're currently discussing.
I would just add that we started kind of the baseline, if you will, at that 8th grade class in terms of starting that concept, because after they get their 8th grade class, they go with their plan to the high school. Then that's where they will continue that advocacy or that support for every student, and then we're going to push it down the other way.
Okay.
But that's not, I don't think that's one of these years strategies.
Okay. In theory, that should help. The counselors should alleviate that workload. So, and that was one of the reasons that we put that in there in the strategic plan, because we want to create an environment where our counselors can be freed up to be truly guidance counselors as much as possible, and then have advocates for all our kids as well. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. At this time, seeing no more lights, this is a discussion action item. We can take action, or do we need to take action? Yeah. It'd be recommended if the committee would.
Yes, the committee does recommend that we accept and approve the ratios as proposed by Michael Hill's presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. But coming from committee, we don't need a second. We have a motion by committee to approve, consider staffing ratios. At this time, please vote. 7 trustees present, 7 trustees voting in the affirmative. We have some staffing ratios for our 2014-15 budget, which we're already working on. Always interesting. Next items on the agenda is our consent item. Are there any items that we've withdrawn from the consent agenda? Tonight we'll be considering items listed on your agenda under consent items. Ms. Powell, please share with us donations and bids.
Thank you, President Hogg, board members, Dr. Cavazos. We have one bid on the agenda this evening, and we are recommending the lowest bids, and the bids meeting the district's specifications and representing the best values to the district. We also have donations to report. Tonight we report that our schools have received donations from the following individuals and organizations: the Arlington High School Football Booster Club, Arlington High School Choir Booster Club, the Bowie High School Volleyball Booster Club, Lamar High School Band Booster Club, Lamar High School Cheerleaders Booster Club, the Martin High School Band Booster Club, Seguin High School Girls Basketball Booster Club, Seguin High School Baseball Booster Club, Keith Woodard, Safeway, Arlington Kiwanis Foundation, Lockheed Martin, Don Painter Photography, William Bentley, St. Albans Episcopal Church, Duff Elementary School PTA, Diana Hoover, Martha Rue, Spring Creek Barbecue Number 1, Tom and Kimberly Siegenthaler, and Jade Taylor and Brenda Allen. And the donations presented for your consideration this evening total $37,328, which brings our year-to-date total to $449,030.
Thank you, Ms. Powell, and our donations in the spring will be listed a little differently.
Yes.
In some new formats. Thank you to one of our colleagues' good ideas to help recognize these individuals even more. At this time, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barron, second by Mr. Hibbs. At this time, is there any discussion? Ms. Pena.
For the sake of transparency, I'd just like to address two items that are on the listed in the consent. They are items number I, consider contract for general counsel, legal services for the 8-month period beginning January 1st to 2014 and expiring August 31st, 2014. This is something that we have not done before. Since 2005, we have had Hill Gilstrap as our attorney. We're going to have an 8-month retainer for them that will take them to August 31st, 2014. And then at that time, this is a direction that the district is trying to move for more open transparency, is to allow requests for qualifications to come in to the district in June. And for the sake of transparency, I just wanted to make sure that this, because it's such a big impact on the district, who our legal counsel is. The second item that I wanted to address was consider extension of contract for collection of delinquent property taxes. It's on page 63 of our packet. And I wanted to bring this one up because what we have found is we really don't have any comparative data for last year and this year because it's like comparing apples and oranges. The time frame to do the comparison is not there. And I think what we've learned is that when we award this type of contract, what we really need to do is award it for a 2-year period rather than just a 1-year period, so we have true analysis of what the collection of the delinquent taxes are. So I recommend in the future that when we, and if we do award this contract, that we do it for a 2-year period rather than a 1-year period. And that's all I have to say about that.
Perfect. And Ms. Pena, one point of clarification, just, I know you just went right over it. We'll actually release that the RFP in January instead of at the end of the contract. So we will start that RFP for legal services coming up in January. The contract will run through the end of August.
Oh, okay,
14th.
It's on that, but in our packet it says June.
June.
Oh, it's gonna, yeah, for a new contract term to begin September 1st, 2013.
So
this
start.
is, yeah.
Yep.
I just read it out of the
Right, no. I just don't want, we're not waiting till the end of their contract to release
Right.
it. So we're releasing the RFP before.
Correct.
Perfect, just one clarification. One other quick comment on this in there, and Ms. Pena, it's a good point you brought these up. I just want to congratulate the district for moving towards online student registration. This is a huge factor. The less we can eliminate paper in the district, the better. And more importantly than even eliminating paper is maybe people's time and frustration during a registration process, which can have hour-long waits and lines. So I want to congratulate staff and especially Chad and his team for really coming up with the concept of how to work this. It's a great concept, and you have a good beta test coming up with some kindergartners to learn how to do this, because we all know online registrations can also be a little rough at sometimes. So it's a good test. So I thank you for bringing that to us and moving forward with that for something we wanted. So at this time, we have a motion and we have a second. At this time, we will take a vote. All trustees present, all trustees voting in the affirmative. Next, we'll move on to our discussion items. First up, we have discussion item A, Dr. Reich, Capital Needs Steering Committee update.
Thank you, President Hogg. briefly want to inform the board of the progress that the Capital Needs Steering Committee is making and what we're doing as or what we have done as the Community Engagement Committee of the board in going through this process. The steering committee, the last meeting they had was in November 25th, where they went through the next round of looking at what options are available. We heard some of those at our last board meeting, our work session, and they started to really process all of that information, which is huge. And they also, in doing that, were doing that in preparation for some community town halls, essentially, that we just completed. We had 4 of those over the past 2 nights. And attendance, I'll have to say, the first night wasn't great, but that was Tuesday, right after we all came out of our iced-in cabins. So that's very understandable. Last night's attendance numbers were great. And on that note, the materials that were presented last night, you all have a copy of those. It's the big packet with lots of numbers, lots of dollars. Pay very close attention to those. That information was presented to the groups last night, and they were given questionnaires to provide their input, because we need the input, us as a board, our staff, our consultants that are working with us in this process. We need to know what the pulse of the community is on some of these options that have been created based on previous input and data, and all of that information is available online. The questionnaire is available online, as we had done in the past, and that questionnaire will be available to complete through Christmas Eve, through December 24th. So in the midst of holiday preparations, please include that on your list. It's a lot of information, a lot of data, but it's very important that we get as much information and input from our community as possible so that we can keep that ball moving forward. The Capital Needs Steering Committee itself is doing tremendous work digesting just a voluminous amount of information. And we are going to request of the board, the Community Engagement Committee met with senior staff and our consultants to get a clear picture of how, as a board, we're going to be involved completely in this process, because we're doing a lot and we have our hands in it as community engagement, but we really needed to plan where we can have every board member here have that opportunity to digest it, to ask questions and input. And so what we're proposing is that we have a work session which will occur shortly after the Capital Needs Steering Committee. Some of the members there and staff and consultants go through some work sessions on kind of finalizing some of the options, or getting close to finalizing options towards recommendations that would come to us. And we would like to have a work session. The date that we have scheduled, or targeted to be scheduled, is January 15th, which is a Wednesday, the day before our board meeting. And we're hoping, if we start around 4:30 until question mark. This is a similar process that the board went through in the past, in past years, to work with the senior staff, with the committee co-chairs, and maybe other committee representatives from the Capital Needs Steering Committee, so that we can ask as many questions as you all would like to. If we do it in that fashion, it will make our board meeting, our actual board meeting, a much better process. Otherwise, we'll be here until 3 in the morning, and we don't want that. So that's something that we're putting out there. Also, for the Capital Needs Steering Committee themselves, it's being asked of them to shift their next meeting. On the schedule is January 9th, and our advisors, our consultants have asked that that be moved a day up to the 8th, so that they're here the 6th, 7th, and 8th, and get their work done in January. So that's essentially where we are. So I put that out there, and we don't have to decide that right here tonight, but as soon as possible. It's very important for all of us to get on the same page as where we're needing to go. So unless my 2 colleagues have anything, that's all we have from community engagement.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Reich. We'll move on to discussion item B. Dr. Cavazos, District Scorecard.
Thank you, President Hogg. And as part of our strategic plan and our efforts to measure our progress and continue that continual improvement, one of the strategies is to have a district scorecard. And not only a district scorecard, but that cascades to all leaders in the organization, and everyone have a scorecard of their own to support the district scorecard. So Dr. Carter will present the proposed district scorecard tonight. Dr. Carter.
Good evening, President Hogg, Superintendent Cavazos, and the members of the board. The district scorecard, of course, comes out of the Studer Group process and is very key to developing the sense of accountability and eventually things where individuals will be accountable for achieving certain targets. And this year we have our targets, or we're proposing some targets, and this is sort of like a practice year. It's sort of like, because this is new and we're going to see how this goes and make adjustments, where next year it's supposed to be much more serious and aligned with what personal appraisal is for the administrators at the district and campus levels. So here we are with the scorecard proposal for you to review or for consideration. Overall, you have this one before you, and then I'm going to go into the specific details. So this just shows how the scorecard looks overall. Under student achievement, the very first one is increase percent on track to graduate all students from 46% to 48%. This should look very familiar. It's the very first goal of the district improvement plan. And so each of the campuses will have their specific ones according to this very same one for on track. Some had asked about how does this translate into the number of students, additional students, and you have a sheet, I think, that was given to you tonight that supplements this portion. So what this would require is approximately 1,090 students, more students, to be successful in meeting the on-track criteria. And you may recall on track is you're meeting all the criteria. You're passing all courses, you're passing all the state's assessments. There's a certain attendance level that you have to meet, which is 95%. And at the high school level, you're on track with the number of credits that you have. So it's across the board. So that's why it seems like only 2% increment, but we're talking about 1,090 more students that would be required to meet that on top of whatever we had before. The second bullet is increase the percent on track to graduate K2 students from 30 to 35% under a rigorous standard, and from 57 to 62% under a more minimum standard. Basically, two standards. What you had before was the 30 to 35. And basically what that is, with the K1, they have 4 points that they can get on the standards, one being very much below. 2 is there's good promise that they're going to get on grade level. 3 is they're definitely on grade level, and 4 is they're above. And there are multiple standards, several standards on those report cards. So what it was with the rigorous standard, they had to be on grade level with a 3 across the board. Okay. So with the standard that's a little bit less, they had to have at least a 2. No 1s, but at least a 2, which indicated that there was a promise that they would probably get there. They're not quite there. So that's why you have the 2 different standards there. Now what that means in terms of a number of students, it would require about 665 more kindergarten through second grade students to be successful on all those criteria. The third bullet is increase the Index 1 score from 75% to 78%. You recall that the Index 1 score is the one that says all tests, how many tests. Here are how many tests were taken, how many tests were passed. And so 75 to 78%, that 3%, would represent, it's a spectrum here, going from 3,910 more students being successful on at least one more test, or 1,303 students being successful on at least 3 additional tests. So for instance, like with grade 4, you have 3 tests. You might have a student that didn't pass any of them, okay, just one student. If you had just one more student who just reversed that, then that would be the 1,303, if you had the 3 tests being given. Okay, otherwise, it's just strewn out through just one more test throughout. That's 3,910 students. The 4th bullet, district on all campuses will obtain a Met Standard rating. Now, that is attributed to the 3 campuses that didn't quite meet the standard under Index 3. And with those, looking at just those particular piece of data, it would mean 50 more students would have to meet in that special accountability in those groups to be successful than we had this last year. Continuing on, increase the composite percent of sophomores meeting college readiness standard on the PSAT, going from 33% to 35%. That would require approximately 70 more sophomores getting on that composite, which is a pretty rigorous standard set by the College Board. Increased participation in AP courses in high school from 21% to 23%. Given the enrollment of high school students, that would be 325 more students. Now you notice that that has an asterisk there, along with the same with the PSAT, because it's kind of after the fact. This target is after the fact. Enrollment has already occurred in the AP class. The only way that there could be an increase would be whatever we could do in the spring semester coming up. So it's a done deal for the most part with the AP. With the PSAT, the sophomores already took the PSAT, and so it's only to the extent that maybe some of those prep courses may have helped, and we're going to be, that's part of the some of the metrics that we're going to be looking at when we get the PSAT results to see the students that did participate in some of those prep courses, and weren't very many, and how they did, especially as compared to what might be predicted of how they would have done. And the next one is increase the percent of students scoring 3 or above on the AP test, going from 56% to 58%. And that would be approximately 45 more students. Out of the 2,305 students that took AP exams, it would be 45 more students in order to achieve that particular goal. And lastly, increase the percent passing rate of students taking certification examinations going from 88% to 90%, and that would be approximately 15 more students, because there are just under 800 that actually took those examinations. Now then there are survey measures into the 2 categories for people and service, and these are the 2 of the pillars under the scorecard. Under the people area, you had the increase in the district mean on employee engagement survey to go from 3.8 to 3.9. Now those targets are pretty much set by Studer. Given where you might have as your base, they suggest that you go this far as your target, and that's for the end of the year target. That's not going through the year, but by the end of the year. And under service, we have 2 areas. Increase the district mean on the parent satisfaction survey, going from 4.22 to 4.27. And then when it comes to the district services survey, the district mean going from 4.02 to 4.12. Again, those increases were recommended by Studer themselves. Under finance, we have 4 particular goals. 1, to provide options for funding recommendations of the Capital Needs Steering Committee, which you heard already, hearing some of the process of that, for prioritized facility and identified capital needs through 2019. To propose plans for strategic investment of available funds to advance the district's goals. To increase the number of campuses meeting finance requirements to meet the MPE. Those are going to be more specified this year for MPE requirement, or criterion, I should say. And lastly, propose a balanced budget while meeting the needs of the strategic plan. The last pillar for the district basically is going to be filled in by departments. Departments set process goals that are aimed to support the accomplishment of the district's summative goals. And what we have are some samples. The first one is from curriculum and instruction, and that gives an indication about how what could be a quality indicator to support the district targets under student achievement. But for curriculum and instruction, they have the full implementation of all strategies listed in the 13-14 District Improvement Plan. And of course, if you look at that, there's a long list of strategies that are to be implemented in order to accomplish the goals and the performance objectives in those in that District Improvement Plan. Another example is from instructional technology. Again, with the student achievement, it sort of just stays where it is because the departments, for the most part, don't have the responsibility directly on there. So their responsibility is for the entire district as a whole. So with the quality indicators there, Mr. Branham has, this group has come up with these 4 bulleted areas. Transform learning opportunities for staff and students beyond current face-to-face offerings by implementing 3 areas: virtual, synchronous, and asynchronous courses, virtual live interactive training and support, and on-demand digital training content. Second bullet is align all professional learning offerings to the ISTE standards, support implementation of transformative learning practices as outlined in the strategic plan, and increase the percent of students impacted by the transformation through innovation grant program, going from 12% to 17%. So those are the quality indicators that the instructional technology, that's just one department out of, I think Chad has 5, I believe, for the, under the technology division. And lastly, for the area superintendent, there you'll notice the student achievement data or targets look a little different because it's only for the secondary, all the secondary together. So that particular, those targets are to be met by themselves as something to achieve. But then there's the 2 under people and service from the survey, the employee engagement survey, basically going from 3.7 to 3.85. And quite frankly, that is a guesstimate because we still have to get some other additional information about that. I'm sorry, that's right. That is right. They did not have a baseline because we didn't have area superintendents, fully, staffed and who it was and all that sort of thing when we had the engagement survey before. So we are using this year's, this cycle right now as the baseline. And it's just, we're presuming it's going to be approximately 3.7. We don't know. We'll have this updated very soon, by next week, since tomorrow is the last day for the employee engagement survey to be online. And under the service area, increase the secondary campus mean on the parent satisfaction survey. Now, last year, that mean for the secondary was 4.22. And given that increase by the Studer standards to 4.27, that's what is set for Ms. Wilmuth. Any questions?
Mr. Bompa.
Thank you, President Hogg. Mr. Carter, thank you very much for your presentation. On the student achievement goals, how did we arrive at the goals to go from 46 to 48? What was your guiding or driving factor there to select those goals?
First of all, when it came to the first one, it was the matter of a combination of looking at how we did from the previous year to last year, and both in terms of course passing rates and also on STAR. And those pretty much were flat. So this 2% increase on, across the board like this is quite a bit of movement forward. And of course, there are a lot of things that are still going to be put in place that should begin to, over time, gain some momentum to move it along probably a little bit at a more rapid pace. The other thing, too, is to keep in mind, and this is the same thing with the index 1, which is the 3% increase, there's going to be additional inclusion of certain test scores that were not included last time. Star L, for instance. All students that are, that were exempt from having to take the test, or being included, I should say, Star L was not included this past year, which is the, later the index 1, but it's part of this one here too. So even if we had it a flat, even if we just said maintain, it is still an increase really over the previous. Now, we don't know what that baseline is yet, because the state still is making some decisions about some of the inclusion under what conditions, and even about the targets and whatnot. And once that is established, then we could probably generate what that new base would be, but we don't know. And so rather than waiting for that, it's going with what that is last year, and still trying to go with the 2% increase with that inclusion in there. I hope that explains that a little bit. That's just one, one of the areas.
No, I guess I understand that. I guess, and this is one that, as much as I appreciate the fact that, again, I've been talking about having our own metrics, in order to really kind of benchmark us against what other districts across the state are achieving. Really, we don't have any benchmark to look towards, right? Because, I mean, does anybody else use, there's not another metric, another district that uses this metric. This is something that you created here.
We created here. All I can say is in talking with some colleagues at some other districts, they certainly like the idea, and they're going to try to implement it too.
I had a feeling they would.
and so we'll start making some comparisons once it gets established. Probably under the radar, because quite frankly, they're a little nervous about doing that. I like that we are being a little bit more challenging that we're doing it, right up front. But I think there'll be a few others that will come on board. We can say, okay, and this is how, this is how we do it compared to some others doing the very same kind of metric of on track.
I think it may be a good idea to, while continuing with these metrics, to also include some metrics that we can norm, that we compare against the norm. So, and I remember looking at one of the strategic plans that we considered when they were looking at their goals and objectives, in terms of, okay, we're going to compare ourselves against the state median on this, and our goal is going to be 1 point or 2 points or 3 points against the state average, state median, whatever. And so, I think that will also give us an idea of, how we're doing versus the state average on some of these metrics that can be compared. I mean, I really do like this one. I think this is a very powerful one, but it really, it's hard to benchmark it because nobody else is doing it. So we can't say we're doing better, or we're doing as well as we should, or we could be doing better.
Yes, I think this is one of those metrics that there's one thing we know, for instance, to become a premier school district, graduation rate, more students in, with levels of, the foundation or whatever the requirements are going to be. We know that that's going to have to go way up across the board with all student groups. And this is one of those things that, are we at least going towards that regardless of what anybody else is doing? Are we headed towards that? Because you could have, I mean, hopefully it never happens like that, but the state of Texas is not doing very well at all, but Arlington just sailing away. And actually having that recognition. It does not matter at some point how we are compared to the others. So this particular one is probably a necessary one, just see that we are moving along that direction. The other ones, we will be able to have, in, as you say, kind of in a normative sense, we can make comparisons against the state, like Index 1. Index 1 is a good example. The 3%, we'll be able to say, okay, we went this far, but the state went only this far, and we exceeded the state. But we have no idea what the state is going to be, so it's going to be, it's just a target that we have. Okay, so
Yeah, and I think
we will have that. The AP, same with AP.
Well, once we have that information, I think it'll give us a better gauge of, are we being overly, ambitious?
Exactly.
Or are we not shooting high enough?
Yeah.
And that's the trick in all these.
Yeah.
I just want to add, Mr. Pompa, that this scorecard is not replacing all the metrics that were adopted by the board. And so we're going to have all those comparisons, even national comparisons, things like that, with our annual report and the reports you hear from Elaine and Wally's periodic reports, because we have, remember, adopted a large number of metrics. So that's the challenge here.
So how do we utilize this versus that?
That's a good point. And Wally, you want to address that?
This is supposed to go towards the accountability with individuals. It's going to be, this, for instance, the overall scorecard is basically to the superintendent's accountability, the chief academic officer accountability. With the finance area, it's with the chief financial officer. I'll have some quality indicators in there, and I'll be held accountable for achieving those things. So the scorecard is eventually to be linked with personnel appraisal in meeting targets.
So the selection of these in particular, in relation to all the metrics that we have, that we've established, the board has approved, are really those big driving forces in the district. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. If we could put them all up there, and then it's hard to distinguish because they're not of equal proportion. We have all the metrics that we have adopted and things like that, but they're not of equal proportion. And so we spend a lot of time with Studer and internally as well to pick out those big drivers that will affect the other metrics, but that you can summarize to some extent in terms of a view of the district. And then to also have it as a scorecard for the individuals, as Wally mentioned. The other part of that is, just like our campus improvement plans and that we implemented and the board has adopted, we had to pick certain goals for them with their collaboration, so that we can have leading indicators, if you will, and make it manageable. But we're going to be reporting on all the metrics that the board has adopted.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I was just going to point something out on one of the, I guess, maybe examples or in terms of the quality indicators, if this is something that we're going to be looking at, it's something like support implementation of transformative learning practices. It's hard to quantify, those kinds of statements, so I'd rather see something that is measurable. That you can say, yes, you did, or no, you didn't, or you did it to this level or that level. And so, as we're populating these with indicators, with quality indicators, do want to see something that is measurable and that is black and white. Either yes, you did, or no, you didn't. Support implementation is okay. There's really no way to measure that. You can say I did, but then it's to what degree did you do it, and so that kind of thing. So I just caught that, and I wanted to mention that.
Oh, yes. Duly noted.
Thank you, Mr. Pompa. Dr. Carter, thank you.
Well,
we have lots of processes, and this is one of the ones in the plan we talked about, and it's moving forward, so we thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Dr. Foster just informed me this will be brought back in January for action item. Now we come to our open forum for non-agenda items. The second open forum segment of the meeting provides citizens with an opportunity to address the trustees on any subject except personnel. This is not intended to be a discussion or a debate, and trustees will not reply to speakers. Derogatory comments aimed at individuals will not be tolerated. I have 3 cards from our audience. When your name is called, please step to the podium. You'll have 5 minutes to speak, A lighted timer on the podium will assist you in pacing your presentation. A yellow light will illuminate when there is 1 minute left for you to complete your presentation. When the red light comes on and the buzzer sounds, please end your presentation. I'm going to go right back to the last discussion item. We're close. We're close. This one takes no time except me reading it out to everyone. Thank you guys for catching that. So discussion item C is our progress report for Board of Trustees continuing education credit. Let me read exactly this because we do need to put it into our minutes for this. The progress report for Board of Trustees continuing education credit, January 1st, 2013 through December 12th, 2013. Pursuant to Texas Education Code, Section 11.159B, the minutes of the last regular board meeting during the calendar year must reflect the names of those board members who have completed the required continuing education, who have exceeded the required hours, and who are deficient as of the date of the meeting. Therefore, the minutes of this meeting will reflect that each trustee has the following number of training hours at this time. Tier 1, experienced trustees are required to complete Tier 1 update to the Texas Education Code training after legislative session. The following trustees have completed this requirement: Bowie Hogg, Jamie Solons, Aaron Reich, Gloria Pena, Peter Barron, John Hibbs, Tony Pompa. Tier 2, the following trustees attended the required Tier 2 team building assessment training with the superintendent: Jamie Solons, 3 hours, Aaron Reich, 3 hours, Peter Barron, 3 hours, John Hibbs, 3 hours. The following trustees completed the Tier 2 team building assessment by watching the DVD recording of the training session: Bowie Hogg, 3 hours, Gloria Pena, 3 hours, Tony Pompa, 3 hours. Tier 3, the following experienced trustee had exceeded the required 5 hours of Tier 3 continuing education credit: Bowie Hogg, 32.45 hours, Jamie Solons, 26.45 hours, Aaron Reich, 24.5 hours, Gloria Pena, 53.25 hours, Peter Barron, 44.45 hours, John Hibbs, 24.25 hours, Tony Pompa, 17.7 hours. Open meetings training. The following trustees have completed their required open meetings training: Peter Barron, Bowie Hogg, Aaron Reich, Jamie Solons, Gloria Pena, John Hibbs, Tony Pompa. And that is all the official hours for the trustees. I also want to thank our superintendent, who also completed almost all these trainings, especially the Tier 3 training where you've completed 48.95 hours. Thank you for your involvement, Dr. Cavazos. And he's not required. Exactly right, Ms. Pena. But he's part of the team, so he does it anyways. But the state likes to give us those requirements because they don't think we spend enough hours on everything else. So now we will go in to the open forum for non-agenda items. If you don't remember, I can give a rebriefing of exactly what would need to be said. We do have 3 speakers this evening. In the order I will be calling them is Angela Ray. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Marlon Rollins and Jose Luis Flores. Up first is Miss Angela Ray over administrative responsiveness to educational issues. Did I say your last name right?
Yes.
Okay. Wasn't sure if it was Ray or I don't know what else it was going to be.
My name is Angela Ray, and I'm here to inform you of a situation that I'm having at Sam Houston High School. Back in October, I filled out some paperwork for my daughter to attend TLC Learning Academy or whatever after school. And today, I went up to the school. I was at the school at 12:29. I left there when the school closed. I was told to have a seat. Someone will be with me after lunch. Miss Poindexter, I believe her name was. When school closed, no one in the school knew where Miss Poindexter was at. So I've been at that school every day I gave them from October to November. And then I started going to the school constantly, but I think I'm too quiet and soft-spoken, so I was kind of pushed to the side. None of my phone calls were returned from anybody. The counselor, I seen her today, and she said that she had given the paperwork. However, somewhere the ball got dropped. So I went to the school itself and talked to the people at the TLC Academy, and they said that they would contact Sam Houston, and then she let me know that she did contact Sam Houston, but still never got the paperwork. And then I have another daughter who has already been enrolled into the academy with just a week, processing, but she was at another school. She's at Seguin, and it took them only a week to get her in there. And so far, as of today, I don't have an answer to whether or not she's going to be into the TLC Academy, and she needs that to graduate at the end of the school year. So that's my issue.
Ms. Ray, I would ask you, thank you for your comments. Would you please stay, I know you've been here all night. Stay around. I'd like Mr. Hill, our Assistant Superintendent of Administration, to sit and talk with you for a few minutes and see what can be done, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ray.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Marlon Rollins speaking over administrative professionalism and responsiveness. Good evening, Mr. Rollins. Thank you for your patience tonight.
Thank you very much, President and Dr. Chavez. Again, my name is Marlon Rollins, and I am a citizen, a tax-paying citizen here in Arlington. I grew up here in Arlington. I'm a product of Arlington ISD. I'm also here secondly, as a parent guardian of 4 children in Arlington ISD. I've had 5 generations of family members to go through Arlington ISD. And then third of all, I'm here to talk to you as a small business owner where my office is located in Dallas. I've also provided a lot of support to Arlington ISD at different schools and through different programs. I've probably donated over $4,500 in the past 2 years to Arlington ISD. Now, the situation that Ms. Ray had talked to you about, we were addressing as an educational issue. It turned into something that was very unprofessional by the staff and one of your VPs, which is Mr. Hugh Spence.
Mr. Rollins, I'd ask you, let's be cautious over using names. We will talk to you afterwards, but
okay.
Give us a general idea, but try not to use names if possible, please,
well,
sir.
as an administrator
at
Sam Houston High School,
Thank you.
After consulting with my attorney and a relative of mine, first of all, I'm sorry, Ms. Pena, former Board of Trustee Ron Price told me to tell you hello. Again, after
Mr.
consulting
Price.
with Mr. Price, which is a relative of mine and my attorney, I was asked to or recommended to come here prior to my second moving forward. After talking with a VP at Sam Houston High School about the situation, I was not provided professional assistance. As a small business owner, tax-paying citizen, as a professional such as you all are, I expect to be treated as a professional and then also be given the attention as a parent for the education. There is a distinguished aspect that parents are here to just talk noise or loud talk and not be active in their students' education, but that is not the case in our sense. So you're here for the support. We know that you all cannot do it by yourselves, and as a parent and as a tax-paying citizen, I felt that I was not treated professionally, and the utmost at the end, I was asked to leave the school because I was not acting in an appropriate manner by security, and at that time I was walking off the campus and I was assaulted by a security officer, which again I've been asked not to say any names, but again I went to the police officer on the campus and I moved forward in pressing charges against him for assault, and I would like the board to know that we will continue to move forward with additional civil suits as I move forward, and really would like you all to know the unprofessionalism at the administration at Sam Houston High School today. Thank you.
And Mr. Rollins, thank you for not using names. We will find out names, but I would ask you also, let Ms. Ray go first, but then would staff please, I would really like them to sit down and talk with you for 5 minutes to find out more details if you have time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. He's going to. He'll grab him in just a second. Next, we'll move on. Oh, we have one more. Sorry. Next, we have Jose Luis Flores. Mr. Flores, how are you? And I understand you're going to be speaking in Spanish, so we have Mr. Wirtz to help translate, please, if that's okay.
Gracias, buenas noches, señor Cavazos. Gracias por atenderme, miembros de la mesa directiva. Gracias por escucharme.
Thank you, Dr. Cavazos and the school board for listening to him this evening and for giving him a chance to talk to you.
Soy un padre de familia de con niños en 3 diferentes escuelas del
Yes.
distrito escolar.
He's a parent of children in 3 different schools here in the
Y
district.
soy activista comunitario, he ayudado a diferentes escuelas con apoyo en diferentes eventos culturales y donaciones también.
He's, as a parent, been helping each of the different schools with cultural events on campus as well as giving donations.
Soy un padre preocupado por la educación de mis hijos, particularmente preocupado por la comunidad hispana.
He is a parent that's concerned about the education of his children and specifically about the Hispanic population.
Tengo buena relación con los directores de las escuelas. El doctor Cavazos también me ha atendido muy bien cada vez que lo he solicitado, no tengo ninguna queja.
He said he has a good relationship with the principals at each of the schools and that Dr. Cavazos has been very attentive to him every time he's asked for a meeting with him.
Sin embargo, como padres de familia tenemos algunos puntos de vista y observaciones sobre cosas que tal vez nosotros podemos ayudar a mejorar.
He says as a parent, he has a point of view and some concerns about some specific things that are happening. I'm trying to remember what he said.
Como dije, soy activista y tenemos varios padres de familia y yo interés en hacer una agrupación de padres de familia para poder ayudar a las escuelas, algunas escuelas del distrito escolar en el apoyo del desarrollo, de la integración y la seguridad de algunas escuelas.
As a parent, there's a group of parents that have come together that they want to form he's an activist, and he wants to form a group of parents that want to come together to have a meeting to discuss how to increase the security at some of the campuses across the district.
Tenemos esos 3 puntos específicos, pero hemos tenido 2 reuniones oficiales del grupo de padres de familia y pensamos que pueden salir más, pero para eso ellos me pidieron a mí que primero viniera a preguntar de qué manera nosotros podemos entrevistarnos con gente responsable del distrito escolar para tener una reunión e intercambiar ideas sobre algunos puntos.
They have 3 specific points they want to talk about. The group wants to speak with about, but before he came, he was asked by the group of parents if they'd come before the school board to ask for a meeting with some district officials to maybe generate some ideas about how they can address the concerns that they have.
Nuestra idea es, si se puede, para el próximo mes de febrero tener alguna reunión de padres de familia, también de algunos empresarios del área del código 76010, que queremos intercambiar algunos puntos de vista en una reunión para el mes de febrero con gente del distrito escolar.
In February, they're going to be holding the next meeting, and they are hoping that they can have a joint meeting with the parents and also officials or representatives from the district.
Sobre 3 puntos que quiero adelantar. Primero, sobre el desarrollo. Hay algunos empresarios, pequeños empresarios del área de aquí de Arlington que a principios del ciclo escolar tienen el interés de ayudar a los estudiantes dándoles los útiles y las mochilas, así como se hace en el distrito escolar de Dallas. Pero nosotros queremos ver de qué manera podemos integrar un grupo para poderlo hacer a nivel distrito escolar.
Empresarios. He said there's a few businesses or business people here in Arlington who would like to get together to maybe donate things to the school district. For example, school supplies that I think he said they're giving to Dallas right now. And so one of their ideas is to develop an opportunity to do that for here in Arlington.
We'll extend more time. Please tell him that we're going to extend more time so that.
Okay. El otro tiene que ver con la seguridad. Una de las escuelas donde están mis hijos pues es la escuela Sam Houston. Es una escuela donde desafortunadamente se menciona muchas veces en los noticieros en español.
One of the other topics is specifically about security. His children attend Sam Houston, and unfortunately, Sam Houston is a school that's mentioned often in the Spanish press.
Hace 2 meses hubo un maestro que fue juzgado por acosar a varias alumnas. El mes pasado una alumna se dijo que había sufrido un intento de violación dentro de la escuela y nosotros queremos saber si hay algún plan de prevención para ese tipo de cosas.
He said in the last month there have been some security issues over at Sam Houston that were reported, specifically about a teacher that was reported to have violated some female students, and specifically an attempted violation of a female student on the campus. And so he wants to know what security measures are being put in place to prevent such things from happening.
Cada vez que pasa algo así, el director tiene la atención y nos habla y nos dice que va a poner más atención en esos temas. Pero nosotros queremos saber si tiene un plan específico sobre cómo va a hacer las cosas, cómo va a hacer para mejorar.
He says they have spoken with them, and they said they're going to come, they have a plan they're going to be working for or to improve those things, but as a parent, they want to know specifically what are the steps or what is the plan that's being put in place to prevent these things from happening. Specifically, they want to know what actions are being taken.
Una última cosa es nosotros queremos también opinar sobre la integración de los alumnos hispanos a las escuelas para que sigan estudiando. Nosotros pensamos.
One of the other things that I'm sorry, I'm going to forget.
Lo siento.
It's okay. One of the things he says that the last theme that he is talking about specifically with the group is about the integration of the Hispanic students within the school and how we can keep them in school.
Nosotros pensamos, por ejemplo, yo no es que diga que pasa aquí en el distrito escolar de aquí, ¿no? Pero por ejemplo, en otros distritos escolares, cuando inicia el curso escolar, los directores, el superintendente y a veces hasta el alcalde están tocando las puertas para que los alumnos regresen a las clases.
For example, one of the things that he mentioned that happens in other districts is that when a student enrolls in a class and no longer attends, the superintendent, other people in the district will literally go to their doors and knock on the doors and invite them back to campus.
Pero cuando eres un alumno que no tienes un seguro social, no te permiten estacionar tu carro dentro del parqueadero de la escuela. Tienes que estacionarlo fuera, algunas cuadras afuera, llueve, nieva, llegas tarde. En fin, es un problema de tipo social que se tiene que atender.
Está hablando de un alumno.
Todos los alumnos.
Okay. One of the things he said is they have the belief, or he says that a student who doesn't have a social security number, he says a student who doesn't have a social security number is not even allowed to park their vehicle on the campus. They have to park it away from the campus and then walk to school, and that makes them late and tardy. And he thinks that should be corrected for all students.
Para ya no quitarles más tiempo, para esos puntos y otros más, mi grupo me mandó a mí para pedirles una reunión para el mes de febrero con los padres de familia, los empresarios y alguien del distrito escolar.
In order, so not to take any more time, what he's asking is that they have their meeting in February and they're requesting the group of parents, the business people that are working with them, and a representative from the district to meet with them during their February meeting.
Gracias.
Gracias. And Mr. Wirtz and Mr. Flores, thank you so much. I would ask staff to please make sure that is on senior staff's calendar as well as our board calendar so that our board can attend also at the same time.
Gracias por estar aquí esta noche y vamos a apuntar esta junta en el calendario del sitio escolar y también con el consejo escolar.
Voy a recibir una respuesta sobre la reunión, perdón.
¿Cómo que respuesta?
O sea, alguien me va a avisar si vamos a aceptar la reunión para febrero.
Es lo que están diciendo, lo van a aceptar. He wanted to know, am I going to receive some kind of notification? I said, exactly what notification are you looking for? And he says, you just want to know if we were going to attend, and I said that we are planning on attending.
And we want to coordinate, have some people talk with you after this.
Y si puede esperar después de su junta, lo que van a hacer es coordinar exactamente cuándo van a estar la junta.
Gracias y buenas noches.
Gracias.
Okay.
Gracias.
Mr. Wirtz, Dr. Wirtz, thank you so much. Big help. We have 2 items left for this evening, Superintendent's Report and School Board Report. Dr. Cavazos, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, President Hogg. I'd like to share some information about the district. Region 11 hosted several sessions on the implications of HB 5, House Bill 5 last week, and our staff was invited to present our unique partnerships that we have in the district, specifically with the fire department. So Evan Smith, Craig Wright, and Cindy Powell were presenting to schools around Region 11 who wanted to learn more about partnerships and how to implement HB 5. And if you notice, the person sitting in the audience there is Pat Hardy as well. She attended to learn more about the partnerships in the district. Also last Monday, I took part in a symposium on ways to evaluate teacher effectiveness with the Commissioner of Education, and I was part of a superintendent's panel that was being provided an opportunity to provide feedback to the Commissioner about teacher evaluations and the future of the PDOS and the the ending of PDOS, I should say. Before Thanksgiving, we had the opportunity to announce the UTA partnership with AISD, Bound for Success, that allows top 20% of juniors in our schools to receive early admissions to UTA. I can tell you the event was very positive in and of itself, but the feedback and reaction we've received throughout the community and really throughout different parts of the state has been really exceptional. And I often say that we want to be a premier school district, not necessarily for the adults. We want to be a premier school district for the students first. And so this is an opportunity to affect the lives of really thousands of, or hundreds of students, over 1,500 students. Early admissions to UTA, it's a great example of a partnership that we can establish in our community and be a model for the state. Last month, I had the opportunity to visit Reminzi Elementary, and they launched their one-to-one technology initiative for 6th graders. And they were assembled at the library. They had a laptop for each student, or a Chromebook, I should say, for each student, and a cake celebration where parents came and served cake. And so that was the highlight, was the actual Chromebook. No, Mr. Barron wasn't there to have cake. But I can tell you the 6th grade students were very encouraged to and very motivated to receive these Chromebooks. Matt Brown did an outstanding job as a principal there, really transforming that 6th grade into this initiative. The students were, I mean, just excited about integrating the technology into the classroom, so I'm very proud of Reminzi. Imagine Learning selected Johns Elementary as the 2012-2013 Imagine Nation Super School, again for the 2nd year in a row. And I had the opportunity to visit with the students there at Johns about this accomplishment and this achievement. This is basically students using technology to acquire the English language and putting a lot of effort and a lot of extra time to do that. Just as a side note there at Johns Elementary, this is the first time in many years that they were able to have a school assembly in the cafeteria and include all the students as a result of building atoms and the boundaries and things like that. So very, very special event there at Johns. And finally, the Arlington Lions Club has recently restarted its vision clinic for AISD students in need of eye exams, and I want to thank the Lions Club for their involvement. They have re-energized their initiative, and we have really embraced their efforts and supported them, and I just want to thank them for their efforts in helping our students. That concludes my report.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. At this time, we have school board reports. Mr. Pompa?
Doctor, I'll take it. Thank you, President Hogg. I wanted to comment on the top 20% admission to UTA. That was one of the challenges that we gave to Dr. Cavazos when we first hired him, and that was actually a challenge that came from the community in terms of, and this is what I was told very specifically, that we spend a lot of effort, we make a lot of efforts and spend a lot of resources on our students that are struggling in school, but we don't do a whole lot for our high performers. And so that was a challenge that we posed to Dr. Cavazos, and his first response was the early college high school, which is obviously a phenomenal opportunity for a lot of our students, and now this is a second one for that, and that's a great opportunity. We heard from one of the young students that day that it was really a life-changing, and I believe it's actually a huge opportunity, not only for him, for his family, but the generations that come after that. The fact that they're able to take the advantage of that opportunity. This young student said that he wasn't even considering going to college, but now that he knows that he is accepted at UTA, it completely changes his perspective, and he will not consider going to college. I have a feeling that's going to be something that's going to be repeated by probably hundreds of students that that was not in their plans or even in their consideration. But there's something to be said for getting a letter from a university saying that they want you and that you've been accepted. Yeah, as a junior in high school. And not only that, the acceptance letter is one thing, but the support, the commitment of support from UTA to begin to make accessible to these students the staff and the resources at UTA to begin to shepherd them through the process of applying for school and figuring out how to apply for financial aid, how they're going to be able to pay for it. So really just removing the barriers between our students and a college education. So I think it's a tremendous program. I really think it's a life-changing program for hundreds of our students. So again, thank you for that. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you to UTA for that support. I wore my UTA tie today in celebration of that, so I'm very excited about it. Thank you.
Ms. Pena.
I'm glad that was brought up. Bound for Success, Tony, Peter, and Marcelo and I were the ones who attended that event, and it was a very proud moment. Every one of us would have been proud of that. Also attended a Chris Kendall reception on behalf of AISD, along with John Hibbs and his daughter, who was in a wheelchair, but she was there. And then also, because due to the ice storm, I was unable to physically go down to Austin to attend a TASB meeting, but I did have a marathon teleconference on Saturday from the ice storm from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. But, you know, it was fruitful, and every once in a while they would say, "Are you still there, Gloria?" Yes, I'm here. I also attended a Webb Elementary Christmas party today. That was very nice, and I want to do a little bragging. My nephew, who I had taken in when my brother passed away, joined the Army in April, and he did his basic training. He's now a certified combat medic, and then yesterday he wanted to also be airborne certified. Yesterday he did his 3 jumps, and then today he did his last 2, so now he is airborne. And I'm very proud of him. He will be home for the Christmas holidays. I also want to extend to everyone a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to our community. Thank you.
Dr. Reich.
I wanted to let the board know that with the budget process coming upon us, Financial Futures Committee will be formed once again. As Community Engagement Committee, we'll have the responsibility to go through and vet out the applicants. So tonight, I'm letting you all know that as early as tomorrow, the official application for the community for membership onto FFC will be posted, and that application process or the application period is through January 10th, and the criteria for being considered is no different. We have made no changes from last year. There's nothing new to report that we need to address, and we have a draft charge developed, and we will, of course, bring that back to the board with the applicants so that we can finalize that draft into a formal charge. And soon thereafter, we'll begin that process so that we can have input from the community regarding budgetary considerations and situations.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Reich. That's an important committee. One last thing, and I will finish this up for this evening. As you'll notice, we all have these poinsettias on our seats, whatever. These are not some bought from the store. These are part of our career technical education programs. These were actually grown by the Arlington ISD FFA program for our agricultural vocational education through their horticulture classes. And as you'll notice, they came in and they delivered them, and they made a comment, and one of the things they learned this year is they actually let too much water get to them. So you'll see there's more green in there than what they usually would like to see in poinsettias. But what you see on that is that's something the kids are learning. And it's not about growing flowers or plants. It's about knowing that you have to pay attention to details. You have to pay attention to little things to make things execute. So I want to thank the Arlington ISD FFA program, one of our many successful career technical education programs that gave us these poinsettias for each of the board members to have this night, because they're not just from the store. They were grown by our own students, which I think is more impactful than anything else we have. On that, it is our last meeting for the year. I want to thank everyone, Dr. Cavazos, your staff, everyone for all the hard work, and all my colleagues. Thank you so much for everything we've done this year. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We are adjourned.